What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Engage 8 podcast. I'm your host, Zach, with my two co-hosts, Josh and Mike. Today, we got a special guest. We got Jackson joining us. He's going to talk a little bit of Raiders with us when we go over the NFL draft, some of our winners and losers. We're just going to go through 5 picks at a time, try and keep it clumped together, and then we're going to talk about the NBA a little bit. You want to get us started, Josh?
Yeah, I'll get us started. We're starting with the first five picks here. 1 through 5. Bears, I don't have much to talk about. They just at the end of the day need to hope that this is the one. If it's not, then it's them. It's not it's not anybody else. For the second pick, Washington, of course, took Jaden Daniels. A lot of people had him mocked there. Personally, I like May more as a prospect, but I understand why you go Daniels. He's a lot more versatile, can do a lot more things. Definitely is going to sell more tickets than Drake May is going to sell if that's what the Commanders want to do in the first few years here. So outside of injuries, I love the prospect, but we not going to know how that one pans out for a while now. So the Pats end up getting Drake May, who falls to them. There was an option that they could have traded or maybe taken Marvin Harrison and tried to get a QB later in the draft. Good for them because they obviously saw the QB onslaught coming in the 8 to 12 range with Penix and Bo Nix going way earlier than people thought. So it's good for them. They did get their QB and didn't decide to try to wait for one of those guys in the beginning of the second round. And then they also drafted Polk from Washington to pair with him. So that's a good first couple rounds for them. Then we fall to the Cardinals, who got Marvin Harrison Jr. They wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. for what seems like over a year now. The past few weeks before the draft, they were kind of teasing, oh, maybe we don't want it, maybe we'll trade out. They end up just staying put. They get Marvin Harrison to replace D Hop from 2 years ago. You get a fully healthy Kyler with a great weapon who's going to be a top 10 receiver really soon. I love that pick for them. And then finish out with the Chargers here at 5. They were also talking about trading out for weeks. It seemed like they were the most likely team to trade out in the top 5. They stay put and take Joe Wald, the best tackle, the best O lineman in the draft. It's going to be a deadly combo with him and Slater, and I think that pick makes the most sense for them instead of trying to go get a stud receiver like Malik Neighbors.
Obviously, pick one for me. Love it. It was kind of the obvious pick for a little over a month now. Was Pulse said on the phone saying, "Yeah, I've been holding it in for a little over a month now." But at 2, Jaden Daniels, like you said, Josh, I would have gone Drake May, but Jaden Daniels with Cliff Kingsbury, Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and a little bit of Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, not Brian Thomas, out of the backfield. That's going to be interesting for sure. May at 3, semi steal in my opinion, but like you mentioned, Josh, they could have traded out. They could have gone a different quarterback, or they could have gone Marvin Harrison. I think it's the right pick. They added some O line help and some receiver help later in the draft to not make it as bad as a Bryce Young situation from last year. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. at 4, it was just obvious he's going to be great. Probably a top 15 receiver by the end of the year, maybe even top 10, depending on how everything shakes out. Him and Kyler are going to be great for the next decade. And Joe Alt, it's not a sexy pick, but it was a necessary one. You got to protect Herbert, keep him upright, keep him healthy, and he was damn near a generational tackle. So I think it's a great pick.
Yeah, these top four picks all went basically how we predicted them to go. Three quarterbacks and Marvin Harrison Jr. Caleb Williams obviously was kind of expected to go first. We saw Jane Daniels go second. I think that'll help the Commanders. Obviously, they needed a quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr. is my favorite pick out of the top five. I'd say I think he's debatably the best player talent-wise in the draft. I think he can completely change the Cardinals' offense, and him and Kyler Murray are just going to be so much fun to watch. And then Joe Alt at 5 was really when the draft seemed to start. I like the pick. You have one of the best tackle duos in the NFL now with Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. It's interesting to not go for a weapon, but we saw them trade up uh, early in the second round and take Lad McConkey, which will help Herbert. The Chargers, they need to keep Herbert healthy. We didn't see it last year, and hopefully Jim Harbaugh will keep him healthy this year.
Jim Harbaugh said that Joe Alt is the weapon,
He did
by
say
the
that.
way. But starting at Caleb Williams, great pick. I mean, he's perfect prospect. My only thing with him, I kind of worry about his arm angle, like like fumbles and stuff. Like
I like
kind
it.
of
Pick them apart. Pick them apart.
yeah. But other than that, I love him. Like perfect. But like awesome. Daniels, he everyone kind of does like the Lamar comparison, and I kind of see that. But like it's like imagine if Lamar went to Alabama, you know?
Fair.
Yeah. So I feel like going in, he's a little more polished than like Lamar might have been. So I think at number 2, he's worthy of that pick. I don't even think May is even close to as polished as he is coming into the league. I think the Pats, with a new coach and a guy like May, it is a little concerning. I don't know how that's going to pan out. And Marvin Harrison, I think I'd say in terms of like who made the best pick for them, I think Marvin Harrison might have been the one. Because like the Bears, like obviously you have number one, you got to take Caleb Williams, but like, did they need him? You know?
Yes.
Did the Bears need
Yes.
him?
Yes,
Well,
they
look, they
did.
didn't
they,
going into the
though?
offseason, they didn't.
Did they need him? Anyways,
Tyson
I think
Bagent
Marvin
QB1.
Harrison. That's I think the best like A plus like perfect pick because like you can't go wrong number one. I feel like Marvin Harrison. That's like, and then Joe All he's a weapon as Jim Harbaugh said.
All right, moving on to 6 through 10. Starting out with the Giants taking Malik Neighbors. The Giants have a lot of holes in this team. They could have gone multiple ways, but they decided to go best player available here and give Daniel Jones a weapon in a year that is really for a guy that has 3 more years on his deal, whatever he has. It really is a prove it year for Daniel Jones, and now you give him a chance with a receiver. He's been thrown to a lot of just bums and then Jalen Hyatt and Wandale Robinson for the past couple of years, but he's coming off an injury. He's got to prove it year up here, and now he gets a dynamic receiver in Neighbors that would have been a top receiver in most other drafts. The Titans, that's another team that I feel like they have a lot of holes as well. They take JC Latham a lot earlier than many teams had him going, but I still like the pick for them at 7. I think they probably would have went Neighbors if the Giants didn't. So I think they were like, okay, if we can't get one of the two dynamic receivers, let's just go O-line and figure out what we can do after that. And then here we go with Atlanta at 8. And they did shock everybody, including myself. And even a couple days after, I was still confused by it. But as I'm starting to sit with it come around Tuesday, it makes a little more sense to me because you can get out of that Kirk deal after 2 years. If Kirk isn't great or he's 38 years old coming off a torn Achilles, then you have a guy in Penix who's older, more experienced, will have 2 years in the NFL sitting under Kirk at that point. Then I think it makes more sense. I think they just don't want to be in that world where they were when they had Ritter and Mariota and Heineke, where it's like, okay, we have a lot of quarterbacks, but none of them are good enough. Now at least maybe we'll have a guy to follow Kirk if the whole Kirk thing doesn't go right, or if they just want out after 2 years. And then the Bears, everyone loves the pick of Roma Dunze. They get their wide receiver 3 to pair with Moore and Allen. And that just gives Caleb Williams the top receiver core to begin his career with. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to rank them as, but they're up there as far as one.
I'm putting them at 1. I would put him 1.
Snap yet.
I understand, but
Keenan Allen's 40. I'm kidding. He was good last year, but
I'd have him 1, but that's also a little bit of bias playing into it. But Texans easily right behind him at 2 because you've got the experience of Dell, Diggs, and Nico Collins as well. If you're taking that big of a factor that Odunze hasn't played yet.
Yeah, I mean, if they had like a guaranteed hit prospect, like if they had Marvin Harrison Jr. with those two, then I'd be like, yeah, for sure.
Oh, it'd
but
be
it's still
one then gap than Texas.
It's still a rookie receiver. Like you still
completely agree.
We got to see what happens. He's not going to get a ton of targets year one, probably. So it's what can we take from year one of him being a wide receiver 3? You might have to wait till we see, okay, post Keenan Allen. Now it's like, all right, can he step up and take up that wide receiver 2 role? But that's way far down the road. And then 10 here, Minnesota trades up one spot to take, I almost said Christian McCaffrey, JJ McCarthy. They didn't need to at all. It didn't seem like, I don't really understand why they traded up. The Jets weren't taking McCarthy, but they do it anyways. I don't personally love McCarthy, but they got their guy. He is a guy that did win, regardless if it was cheating or not. He did win. We'll see how that works out for Minnesota. They've been in love with him this whole draft process, so maybe they see something that I don't or that a lot of people don't, but time will tell. And he gets Justin Jefferson to start out his career, so that's a pretty good prize for him.
I'm going to start at 10 just because it's at the front of my mind. I think they traded up from 11 strictly because Denver, the Raiders, I think there were rumors that they were trying to move up to 8 to move for Penix. And that Penix went, maybe they wanted to move up for McCarthy with the Jets. And the Vikings just jumped on the opportunity, just secured it for sure rather than playing a guessing game.
Fair
but
enough.
Regardless, Neighbors at 6, it felt really essential. You lost Saquon in the offseason. You got to get whoever your quarterback's going to be next year and beyond, just a bona fide stud just to go out there and catch 100 balls a year. JC Latham, I was shocked at this pick. Not Michael Penix shocked, but I was shocked that it wasn't Olu Fashanu at 7. I'm sure Titans fans were really hoping for Joe Alt or maybe even Malik Neighbors, like you mentioned, Josh, if he fell. But with the amount of resources they've invested in that receiver room with Treylon Burks a couple years ago, DeAndre Hopkins signing him last offseason, and then Calvin Ridley this offseason, I found it a little difficult to really squeeze in a 4th receiver, especially a rookie, into that room. But I still think it's a positive pick. Build that O-line, put someone next to Skoronski for the next 5+ years and let them just develop together. Penix at 8, I think you said it really well, Josh. It's really just an insurance policy for Atlanta. If Cousins doesn't look great coming off the I almost said ACL, the Achilles injury, then they've got a backup plan. Or they pull a Jordan Love and let him sit 2, 3, maybe 4 years, and he comes in and he's just pro ready at whenever he comes in.
I do want
Because
to just say really quick on that point, the Jordan Love thing. I'm kind of tired of people talking about the Jordan Love thing. That was completely different. They had Rodgers there for
that's
years.
just recency.
Yeah, it's just like
It
they
was
just
just sitting.
signed Kirk.
Right.
That's what, like, if I was Kirk, bro, oh my God.
Oh no, I'd be pressed. But with Kirk, I think you could argue they're going to win like 10, 11, 12, maybe even more games this year. You're not going to be in a position in the top 10 in the next 3, 4 years if all goes according to plan to draft a quarterback. And you don't want to give up future capital to do that. Me personally, I would have gone someone like Dallas Turner or Laiatu Latu, who I'll get into later as probably my favorite edge rusher in the draft. Mike, I see you grinning ear to ear over there, but it was a great pick by them. But I think they could have gone defense to really focus more on the win now mentality with that older quarterback. But if it's an insurance policy, like you said, Josh, as time has gone on, I kind of semi understand it. Not what I would have done, but it's an okay move. Rome Odunze at 9, love the pick. Easily wide receiver 3 of the class. Could have been 2 if it wasn't for Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors just being dogs and unfortunately in the same class as him. Luckily, he falls. Poles had to be quote unquote held back by Ian Cunningham to not trade up for him. So luckily, we just get him at 9. The Bears could have just called it a night or called it a draft after the first 9 picks, and they would have just had an A on the report card. It's great. I'm loving the future of the team. And at 10, JJ McCarthy. Props to the Vikings not having to give up 2 first-round picks to go to 5, like I had predicted, to go get JJ McCarthy. They sat at 11, only gave up what, like a third or a fourth to move up from 11 to 10. They get their guy. They, like you said, Josh, he's got Jefferson, Hawkinson. He's got Aaron Jones out of the backfield. He's got Addison, who's a second-year stud, better than Jameson Williams, by the way. I saw some stuff on Twitter about Jameson Williams being better, which is absolutely
maybe if
blasphemous.
JMO got a fucking wide receiver 1 rep, he would be. But he's been 2 and 3 his whole career.
Hey man,
maybe
I don't know what to tell you.
Maybe if Amon-Ra just milks an injury for fucking 8 weeks, then maybe he'll be wide receiver 1. That's what it takes, but whatever.
Regardless,
he had a great back half of the season too. He was phenomenal, wasn't he? A lot of 2 reception, 14-yard games for him.
When Jefferson comes back, it's a lot harder, especially with Hawkinson getting 10+ catches for a while there too.
Yeah, Laporta exists.
Regardless, this was like you mentioned, Josh. Not Josh. Like you mentioned, Mike. At 5, that's kind of where the draft started, and this run of players in the top 10, these are all maybe not McCarthy, but they're all blue chip level players, and they were all just no, not even McCarthy, Penix too. Not just forget what I said, man. I don't even know what I'm talking about. Neighbors and Odunze were definitely studs for sure.
Yeah, Malik Neighbors, the Giants need receivers. They also need a quarterback, so there was the potential to go with a quarterback there. They decided not to and help Daniel Jones. Malik Neighbors, it seems like he's not a fan of Daniel Jones as he wasn't in the pre-draft process. So, and he didn't look exactly thrilled in the meetings with all the coaches, but he's going to be a phenomenal receiver, most likely there in New York. J.C. Latham, kind of like this was their backup plan to not getting Joe Alt. They get the tackle they needed, though, to help Will Levis. Michael Penix, obviously, this is maybe the most debated pick of the draft. I understand their idea of taking a quarterback here, but if they were going to run with this plan, I don't know why they would pick the oldest possible quarterback they could have picked. They could have went with JJ McCarthy, who's only 21, very young, and let him develop under Kirk Cousins. But yeah, Rome Odunze at 9. I think that's a great pick. The Bears have a great wide receiver trio. He can learn under Keenan Allen for a year and then really try to flourish in that wide receiver 2 role with DJ Moore being there. I saw today, I think it was the Steelers trying to spike some trade rumors with DJ Moore. How is that going with you, Zach?
That is just completely false. Someone just speculated saying, yeah, if they're going after a superstar receiver, I'm thinking DJ Moore because he's wide receiver 3 in that room. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, because Bears fans don't speculate at all.
Like, oh, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's just funny to be on this end of it and just realize how dumb do we sound.
Welcome to having good players.
I mean, it would just make no sense for them to trade a guy who just had a career year with a past struggling offense and just, I don't know. It would make no sense, especially after making the move for him that they did last year.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere. And then at 10, JJ McCarthy. I'm not a fan of JJ McCarthy, but I mean, this is a pick the Vikings had to make. You have no quarterback really essential that can go out there and win you games and have Justin Jefferson want to stay in Minnesota. You give him a young quarterback, JJ McCarthy, maybe he develops into something spectacular. He's won everywhere he's went, unfortunately, but we'll see if he can do that in the NFL too.
What I think about the Malik Neighbors pick, I think it was probably the worst pick in the top 10. Not because of Malik Neighbors, but because of the Giants. Because it's probably the worst possible fit for both parties in like this situation. Like Malik Neighbors, he's gonna go in, he's gonna be like the guy in that room. There's no one around to really who on the Giants is gonna like show Malik Neighbors how to be a pro.
Jalen Hyatt.
Darren Waller. Darren Waller.
Darren
He
Waller,
retired.
Jalen Hyatt. Like who does he have around? Like he's I feel like it's gonna take him a minute to get it together. Like I love him. I think he's fantastic. I would love to see him go to like the Raiders or something, but I think the Giants is just a terrible fit. Terrible,
I agree
terrible,
with that.
terrible fit. They should have taken Rome. I think Rome would have been ready to go. He's kind of got he's got a good release. I think it's kind of like pro ready. Like I think Rome would have been a way better pick at 6.
That's another
Way better
another
pick at 6.
twitchy player on MetLife.
Oh,
It's
jeez.
not what you like to see.
Yeah, and Latham, I'm not shocked by this because I mean, what's his face retired? He's a podcaster.
Taylor
The other
Lewan.
one.
Taylor Lewan,
Yeah, and that just I feel like that left a hole for them because I think they envisioned him as like a long-term tackle, and and that just didn't happen.
Did not.
Because he just stopped playing that well and got older and
Well, he also tore his ACL
Yeah,
like
he was
back-to-back
also
years,
overrated.
didn't
He was overrated too.
he was all right, but
he got that
that
bag
was
though.
that was like 5 years ago.
He got that
Anyways,
bag.
there was a hole. There was a hole, and they filled it. I'm happy for him. Penix, I think it's a great pick. I don't care how old he is. Kirk is 10 years older than him. Who cares?
What's crazy is that's not even that much of a stretch. He's like probably about 10 years older.
I
than
think
Yeah,
he's
that's what I'm
11
saying.
because Penix is what?
That's what I'm saying.
Pushing 25, and then Kirk is 36.
Yeah.
You get arguably the third best quarterback in the draft. Arguably the third best quarterback in the draft. And who cares? He's 25. Whatever.
He's got the best ball in the draft. He's got the cleanest
and
ball.
he's a lefty. And he's a lefty.
Yeah.
Which
Hey,
doesn't matter. I don't care what anyone says.
yeah, it's interesting
pause.
for the receivers to adjust to that.
Yeah, Rome, he's my wide receiver too. I already said my piece on that. And then JJ, I get it. I don't know if he's gonna start right away. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. When they start getting into training camp, I feel like we're gonna have like an idea like what they're gonna do with him. But I don't really see like the vision for this. This is like a pick they're thinking like years down the road. They don't really think. I don't think they're thinking big picture next year for real.
I think
It just
I think we
goes to
see
show
Darnold.
how important the quarterback spot is. You have to think years in advance
Yeah.
because your
Yeah.
plan right now could go up and blow out his Achilles and just be out for the year. And if you don't have a viable backup or just a viable option in general, then you could end up losing in the NFC Championship game after you lose your third quarterback, like the Niners did a couple years ago.
Nice.
I think we see Darnold rolled out there in the beginning of the season. I think he gets trampled behind that shitty O line, and then we see JJ at some point in the end of the season.
I don't think
I
the
just hope
O-line's
he
that
doesn't end up
bad.
in like a Zach
It's not
Wilson
great.
situation.
They're not like
Nick Mullins was under pressure a lot last year, and Kirk in
wasn't
that 8-game
Darisaw was like
magical run.
hobbling half the season.
Fair, yeah, fair. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I do think we see Darnold though in the beginning of the year. But moving on to 11 through 15 here. Jets trade down one spot with Minnesota, like we said. They get the guy they wanted regardless. It looked like they wanted Olu from the start. I know Sauce Gardner was like all over Twitter being like, no, let's take a weapon or like whatever the hell he was saying. But they end up going with a tackle. And I think this is a good strategy for them. You sign Tyron Smith, of course, but he's definitely injury prone. So you can get him there if you need him. And if you don't need him off rip, you can keep him on the bench. The last thing you need is a Tyron Smith injury, and then Aaron Rodgers has no left tackle or right tackle, and then you're just absolutely screwed. So I think getting him there, maybe he starts right away with Tyron Smith. Maybe he sits behind him and waits until he gets hurt inevitably, but I think it's a good pick for them. And then we got the Broncos at 12. Apparently they were in love with Knicks the whole time. That kind of seems like a PR move from Shefty and them, in my opinion. But I don't know. Not much to say for me about Bo Nix. He's okay. He's old. This seems like a significant overdraft, but all the QBs went in the top 12. So is it an overdraft? I don't know. I just think they could have traded down. Like I think you could have made this pick at even in the 20s probably. Because what of that group of teams in the middle was going to take Bo Nix? The Saints, maybe. I don't think the Saints would have taken him. I mean, who else? The Seahawks,
Seahawks,
maybe.
maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
but even
I was
then,
thinking maybe Seattle via trade down if they got an offer from a team behind them that they really liked. But
yeah, I mean, I don't even know. The
I
Steelers
don't
add
think
to
I
their
do.
crowded QB room. The Kenny Pickett-esque prospect, but yeah, I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't really love that pick at 12. I think they could have traded down if they wanted him that bad, and I also don't think they wanted him as bad as they're trying to make it seem they did. Then we got the Raiders here, Bowers at 13. They took advantage of him falling. It looked like if he didn't go like randomly to like the Titans or the Chargers or maybe the Jets even at 10, that he was gonna fall down into that mid-teens ranking, and the Raiders get him at 13. Now they have two tight ends with him and Mayer, of course, but that really doesn't matter in this situation. They were obviously just going best player available. I personally do like drafting positional need, especially when you're not in the top half or when you're in the top half of the draft. But at this situation, they probably wanted Penix or maybe one of the QBs. I doubt they wanted Bo Nix, but maybe they did. Um, but Bowers falls to you at 13. What was your other option here? Taking a tackle, I guess, or I don't know, taking Latu or Byron Murphy.
DB,
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, as we see, nobody wanted to go DB. I think people are getting scared of taking the corners early because we've seen so many busts. I mean, Sauce was a hit, of course, but
It's
think
hard to
back at
evaluate them. It's
it
really hard
is
to evaluate corners.
the value with the cornerbacks is always in like the 18 to 30 range. Like that's where you're gonna be confident that you're getting good value, and if you don't hit, it's whatever. At least you didn't take the guy at
at least
10.
you didn't take one top three. Am I right?
Yeah, that's kind of my whole point here. I'm scarred from it. So I know from firsthand experience. But moving on to 14, Nola goes with Fuaga from Oregon State. Great run blocker from the tackle position. And Ramchek's super injury prone. Penning hasn't been great for them, or wasn't great last year. So I think this is a good positional need, and you get good value with him at 14. Not a flashy pick, of course, from them, but regardless, I think it's a pick that's going to be an impact player right away. And then the Colts get Latu, who falls all the way down to 15. A lot of people view him as the best edge in the draft. The only reason he fell this far was because of the neck and back injuries that scared a lot of teams away. But this is a pick where I think it just literally just comes down to that. If he's healthy, this could be the best pick of the draft at 15, or the best value pick of the draft at 15. But if he can't, then the Colts got fooled and everybody else was right. So I think this is what, like, it's hard to evaluate. Obviously, if we're just going off pure skill, this is insane value at 15. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, all is good and he can continue to play.
Yeah, this is going to be a record-breaking 5 picks from this draft. Olu at 11. I mean, I mentioned it before. I think they need the depth. I think he's a great player as well. It's a good fit. Bo Nix at 12. He makes the 6th quarterback taken in the first round in the 2024 draft. The first time that anybody's taken more than 5 ever. Most quarterbacks taken in the first round ever. Last time it was conveniently 2021 with Trevor Lawrence, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones. I mean, I for sure. But I wouldn't have taken them, but I did call it during our first mock draft. I think they just go there because of the positional value. I would have gone something else, figure out your situation surrounding the quarterback first. But if they just want to let Zach Wilson mentor Bo Nix or Bo Nix mentor Zach Wilson because of the experience, I guess. I don't know. But they got some shit show going on in that QB room over there. 13, Brock Bowers. I love this pick. It's all about, like you mentioned, Josh, best player available. He is a playmaker. He's a great, not even tight end, just a weapon in general. You can line him and Mayer up, one in the slot, one just hand in the dirt, just ready to run somebody over. It's going to be a fun offense to watch if the quarterback situation sorts itself out with Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Michael Mayer, and now Brock Bowers. It's going to be great. The Saints at 14 went Buaga. I kind of called that too. I felt like it was a very obvious offensive tackle spot for them. No need to further explain there. And for the first time in NFL history, a defender did not go in the top 10, and Latu extended that record to the top 14 and then ended it at 15 for the first time in NFL history where a defensive player did not go in the first 14 picks. Jeez. I love Latu. I think he's going to be a great player. I think he's got all the tools and all just the right counters within his bag of pass rushing moves to be a dominant edge rusher. As a run defender, he's average, but you don't draft someone for their run defending at edge rusher. You draft him to get after the quarterback, and Latu can do that. If the medicals are clear, like you mentioned, Josh, great value pick, and the Colts should be thrilled to have him at 15. If Flus was the defensive coordinator of that Colts defense, having a game wrecker in the middle like DeForest Buckner and Latu on the edge, it's scary. So lucky for Colts fans, but that was 2 of 3 records broken in this draft.
Yeah, starting at 11, Olufashano goes to the Jets. They needed a tackle to help Aaron Rodgers. They get one. Just a need. Rodgers, he's already very old. He's coming off an Achilles tear. You have to be able to block for him. You saw how quickly it hurt you last season. Try to switch that here. Bo Nix at 12. Obviously, I think this is a reach too. I don't think Bo Nix is that great. He has a lot of experience, so you don't have to worry about that. He's seen a lot of football. He's played a ton of football. I think he had played like the most starts as a quarterback in, I can't remember, but it was a lot. Brock Bowers at 13. Interesting pick. The Colts allegedly were trying to trade up for him. No one was really willing to give up a pick. And then the phone lines just stopped ringing. I like this pick for the Raiders. I mean, he's a great player. He's one of the better tight end prospects we've seen. It just doesn't make sense considering we didn't see much of Meyer last year, and now you're adding Bowers. So we'll see how that works out for him. If Gardner Minshew starts or Aiden O'Connell, we will see. Tyrese Fuaga, we know they needed tackles. Penning had been struggling. He was not able to assault players as well as he thought he would, and I think Fuaga will be great with that. And then Latu at 15. Like you said, Zach, a defender didn't go for the first 14 picks. The Colts got their pick of whichever player they thought was the best defensive player in the draft. They believe it was Latu, and I love it. He's very quick. He's very agile. He's an incredible pass rusher. He led the country in sacks the last 2 seasons. He is coming off that neck injury, like you guys said, but he's played 2 full seasons. He had played rugby the season he had taken off for the injury that he was retired for. So he seems to be healthy. They said all the medicals came back perfectly fine. It's usually not a pick that the Colts would go for. They usually like to err on the side of caution with injuries, but they decided to pick Latu here, and that defensive line is just definitely the best that the Colts have had under Chris Ballard and the best they've had in a long time. You got Latu. You already said it. DeForest Buckner. Grover Stewart is phenomenal in the run game. Abu Khan was great last year. You still got Kwity Paye. Dio Dangbo is very good. And Taven Bryan is another defensive tackle. They just have a lot of depth, and they'll be able to throw a lot of different looks at people.
Yeah, starting with Olu. I feel like the Jets, they've kind of been just like picking all the weeds, the past like year and a half, 2 years. And now that Rodgers is going to be back, I think they're finally starting to like get ready. They signed Smith, as you guys said, and then they signed a tackle. I think that's a big, I not sign a tackle, draft a tackle. I think that's a big move because it's really important to have people around the guys you draft that are going to help them grow and develop. And you got Rodgers there, and then you got Tyron Smith. I think it's probably one of the better picks they could have made at 11. And Bo Nix, I think this is Sean Payton falling in love with someone. I have a feeling it gives me massive because it takes me back to like Gruden when Gruden was making all the picks for us. Like it feels like that kind of pick. Bo Nix, he's not terrible. I think out of all the older quarterbacks, he might be the most overrated. I also don't love that he left Auburn. It's Auburn, right? He went to
Yeah,
that Auburn.
his
Yeah, I
dream
don't
school.
love that he left Auburn. I think that's a great place to be. I don't see why he would have done that other than like money maybe.
Leaving
But
the SEC.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like
Ran from
why
the
would you
grind
do that?
He
to play
did
bad
because
defenses.
they don't play bad. They don't play good defense in the Pac-12. That's why he did it.
But see that to me that's a knock.
It
That's a
is.
knock.
I agree.
Talisi, man, I wanted Talisi. I won't lie, guys. I kind of wanted him, but it's fine. The Raiders got Bowers, and I feel like you guys said everything about Bowers that like I could have said. Other than I think they absolutely have a plan for this man. There's no way that Antonio Pierce and all them they took this guy without an idea in mind. And with Mayer, I feel like Mayer, we might not even see him blocking very much. Um, because his blocking wasn't fantastic last year. But I love the Bowers pick. Talisi, I think it's another good fit at tackle because there Ramczyk, he's questionable. I don't think they know if he's gonna play ever again.
I know.
Right? So I think it's
They
another
got a
great
tackle
pick.
that sucks too, so they had no
Abraham,
choice.
he's not that
No,
bad.
I'm saying Penny
No.
sucks.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So, and then Latu, another guy I would have loved for the Raiders to pick, but we didn't need him. But I would have loved to see him in the silver and black. Uh, he's got that dog in him. He does. He does. I just hope that the Colts don't ruin him and keep him off the field, because I think he's the type of guy who needs the experience to play time. He needs to play. He needs to play to improve, you know?
Yeah. And
So
that's
I
all on
think he'd
Gus
belong with
Bradley.
you. Yeah.
I think Gus
Yeah.
Bradley will. And to speak on Latu, one more thing, he already got a Colt tattoo, so
Tough.
Yeah.
Damn.
Hey, Crosby did the same exact thing.
So
Hey.
Xavier Worthy.
yeah, I forgot about Hopefully that's a good sign though.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, the Sean Payton thing that you were saying, Sarb. He did the same thing allegedly with Mahomes, but got
Yeah,
by the trade
With
demon.
one pick.
But I mean, if I was a GM in that draft
say
and
the
I
same
was
thing.
and I was past him, oh my god, I'd be like, oh, he was my favorite quarterback
I
prospect.
was trying
on
to
the
trade
board.
up, man.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I would do. But moving on, 16 through 20 here. The Seahawks get Byron Murphy, consensus top 3 defensive player in the draft, the best run defender in the draft, and the Seahawks needed run defense really, really badly. And the only thing I can think about with this pick is I know the Bengals 2 picks later were heated at that one. They definitely wanted Byron Murphy. The Seahawks get him at 16. I think that's a great value pick for them. One of my favorite picks in the draft for the first round. 17, the Vikings trade back up again, this time with Jacksonville to get Dallas Turner, who was projected to be top 10. A lot of people had him going to Atlanta. We did as well. Turner is a raw prospect. He definitely needs to grow, but he has potential to be very good. Minnesota they lost Neil Hunter to Houston in the offseason. They're looking to replace that edge rusher. And I think if McCarthy can be a good quarterback for them, and if he does play this year, I think they can get to the point where they, towards the end of the year, have 2 impact players. Maybe not right away, but I think both of these guys are guys that you want to wait out for and see how they look year 2, year 3. 18, like I said with the Bengals, they take Amarius Mims here now. I don't hate this pick for them. They still have a less than decent O line. I think they maybe should have gone Verse here, especially with Hendrickson wanting out. I know he said that after, but they for sure knew before that he wanted out. So I think going edge rusher would have made a lot more sense here for them. They miss out on Byron Murphy, of course, like I said, at 16. It looks like they kind of just settled and were like, fuck it, let's just take O line here. 19, this is where the Rams get Jared Verse. Gives them a pass rush they desperately need. Now they got him and Byron Young, who they drafted last year in the 3rd round. They lost Aaron Donald, of course, in the offseason. Verse fell compared to where people had him going towards the beginning of the season and even in early draft season. But he's super fast, has great bend. I like him as a prospect. I think at 19 is great value, and we would have been saying it's great value, especially if you talked to us after that LSU game week 1. And then 20, Steelers needed O-line above all, and they continue to build on it with Fatanu from Washington, arguably the best interior O-lineman in this draft. Another great pick from Pittsburgh. I think they had a mission here. You had to just go get an O-lineman, unless you wanted to get flashy. I know our friend Rangel wanted Cooper DeJean, but I think this is a much better pick than that at 20, and I like Troy Fatanu.
Yeah, I mean Byron Murphy, best D tackle, probably the best D tackle in the class. Getting him is always going to help. Having him in, oh geez, I'm trying to remember his name. It's not Dexter Lawrence. It's the guy that was right next to him.
Who are you looking for?
The Seattle D tackle that they traded for from the Giants. His name is escaping me.
Leonard Williams.
Leonard Williams, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I get him
Leonard
and Lawrence
Williams-
confused too.
I don't remember. I think it's 97 and 99. I just flip them a little bit, but Murphy and Williams, they're going to be a great duo for a few years. They did overhaul the secondary, so I could have seen them going corner there. But again, Byron Murphy, nothing wrong with adding talent to the D line. Dallas Turner at 17 for Minnesota. I hate seeing that they traded up to get him. He's got a lot of talent. He's very raw, like you mentioned, Josh. But with that Brian Flores defense, he dropped back into coverage, I think, like 90 plus times last year in college. So him being able to be standing up and spook any tackle or even guard if he steps to like the 2-eye shoulder or something on the inside, it would be crazy to just like staring him dead in the eyes and watch him drop back into coverage, and then you see the nickel corner running right past you on one of those crazy Flores blitzes. So I think that's a great get by them. The Bengals, they just go for depth on the O-line. They got 2 starters already. There's nothing wrong with adding depth in case of injury, especially with Joe Burrow going down. You want to keep him upright. Jared Verse, they get a great run defender on the edge, probably the best run defender among all the edges. Like you mentioned, Josh, they lost Aaron Donald, so they got to replace that in some form with some pass rush. And Jared Verse, he's a top 3 edge rusher in this class, and I think that's a very good pick for them. And Fatanu, I think you just pair him and Broderick Jones and just let them anchor that O line for the next 5, 6, 7 years, and you welcome those 2 new quarterbacks to your team with a little bit of protection.
Yeah, Byron Murphy, defensive tackle of the Seahawks. I thought they would go edge rusher as well, but decided to go defensive tackle, shore up the interior of the defense. I like the pick. I think it's good for him. Dallas Turner, I love this pick for the Vikings. When you get JJ McCarthy, you went on the offensive side of the ball. Now you come back and you're able to get Dallas Turner, a guy who can help your defense a lot. I think that's a very good pick. Amarius Mims, tackle to the Bengals. I think they just got a lot of the guys they wanted stolen right in front of them. Maybe Dallas Turner, like you said, Byron Murphy, I don't know. But decided to go tackle depth. They need to keep Joe Burrow healthy somehow if you don't want to deal with injuries and not have any backup plan, like you guys said. Jared Verse to the Rams, their first round pick in like, was it like 6 or 7 years or something?
Last one was Jared Goff.
Yeah, the last one was Jared Goff. So it's been a long time. They finally have a first round pick and they get Jared Verse. I was going to help their defense. They obviously lose maybe the best defensive player of all time in Aaron Donald in the offseason to retirement. So it's nice to help that defensive line. And then Fatanu, Steelers get offensive line help. Like you guys said, him and Broderick Jones are going to be hopefully a very good young tackle duo for the Steelers in the future.
Yeah, starting with Byron, I think Seahawks, they're building something. They're building something legit on defense. I love their defense. I think this is a great way to just keep going. They drafted Witherspoon last year. I love their secondary. They got solid linebackers, and they're finally getting that D line together. So I love the pick. Dallas Turner, he's athletic edge, prototypical Alabama edge rusher. I feel like, like not too much to be said. I think it's a good fit for Flores. I love Flores, as you guys might know. I love that the way he just manipulates formations and stuff. I love it. Mims, I see the vision. I feel like you got to protect Joe, but I feel like, tackles, I don't know. I just don't love the pick for the Bengals. I feel like they have plenty of other needs, especially on defense. And in this draft, there was plenty of defenders available at 18. I just don't think it's the best pick they could have made. Jared Verse, I think it's a great pick. Florida State, they were arguably probably one of the better teams in college football last year, if not the best. And I think Jared Verse is a big part of that. And he's coming in to fill Aaron Donald's spot. I mean, can you replace Aaron Donald? No, but I think it's a good pick for them. And Fatanu, I love the Steelers going to the line here. Fatanu, I think he's a physical guy. He moves quick for guard, I think. Just love the pick for the Steelers. I think they're also cooking something there with Justin Fields on offense. I like the way their offense is looking. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at with the Steelers. I love them.
Moving on to picks 21 through 25. 21, Miami takes Chop Robinson. Interesting pick for them. Edge wasn't really a big need for them, but all their edge rushers and D linemen were hurt towards the end of last year. So I think this might just be an insurance pick for them in case those guys end up continuing to be injury prone. Chop gives me similar vibes to Verse, who went a few picks before. Both guys are super. They have great bend. They can drop back in coverage. I think Chop dropped back a ton in coverage too this year. So I think maybe they could utilize him in those kind of ways. Eagles get Quinyon Mitchell as the first DB off the board. Him and Terrion Arnold were looked at as the two top corners, two top DBs in the class. It was a really weak safety class, so corners, DBs is basically the same thing when you're up here. But both of them fell so far, and whoever was going to get them was going to be very lucky and was going to get great value picks. The Eagles, like the Lions, who got Terrion Arnold, addressed cornerback need with the first 2 picks. They got Dijon and Quinyon Mitchell. I love this for the Eagles. Their secondary was just so horrific last year and just getting older and older. So now you get Mitchell and Dijon in there who right away are going to be able to learn under guys like Slay and become probably really, really good corners. A lot of people had Quinyon Mitchell as the number 1 corner in this class. 23, Jags trade down and they get Brian Thomas from LSU. Outside of the top 3 wide receivers in this class, he was for sure the next best at 4. The Jags lose Ridley to the Titans in the offseason. They replace him with Thomas. They also signed Gabe Davis, I believe, in the offseason. So they're starting to try to build back this receiver core and hope that they could change some stuff up and put Trevor Lawrence in a better position to succeed. 24, I had a feeling the Lions were going to trade up and take one of the falling Bama players as they were falling. The Lions just loved the Bama players, and they end up trading up and taking Terrion Arnold at 24 they traded up 5 spots from 29. I absolutely love this pick, especially at 24. The Lions just desperately needed that secondary help. And you get to go get arguably the best corner in the class in Arnold, and then you get Ennis Rakestraw in the second round. So you really build up that secondary, and now they got the team that was in the NFC Championship last year with Kendall Vildor as their cornerback too. Now they have Carlton Davis, who they traded a 3rd round for, Terrion Arnold, who they also traded a 3rd rounder for, to pair with Brian Branch, Kirby Joseph, and then they draft Ennis Rakestraw at in the 2nd round. So I think they did a great job in this draft, especially in the first couple rounds. The Lions have not, in the recent years with Brad Holmes, gone fit over everything. They go best player available. According to Brad, that was best player available for him. And then they go and they counter with a DB in the 2nd round. 25, the Packers miss out on 2 of the top DBs and settle for Jordan Morgan from Arizona. He's a versatile tackle who the Packers plan on moving inside, I guess, this year, is what they've said. I don't really like this pick for Green Bay. I don't like moving tackles around, especially when you have a guy like Barton on the board at 25. But they apparently see something in Jordan Morgan. This was one of my least favorite picks of the first round, though.
Yeah, I mean, kind of backtracking to Chop Robinson, I think it's a solid pick with, like you mentioned, a lot of the D-line was on the, I think IR, honestly, because Chubb was out for the playoffs, and then Jalen Phillips on that Black Friday game, he tore his Achilles or something, so he was out for a while. The Eagles getting Quinyon Mitchell, who was my cornerback 1 in this class, absolutely insane. They get some talent alongside Slay, and they let someone like probably something you would say, Jackson, but he's got someone to learn from in Slay. He's been around for a while, and it's going to be it could be a really good fit for them. They needed secondary, and they went out and got it. The Jags, they were someone that I had mocked receiver to throughout the entire draft process, whether it was trading up to 9 with the Bears to go get Roma Dunze if he fell, or sticking and picking at 17 and ironically getting Brian Thomas Jr. So they get kind of the best of both worlds where they trade back, get some picks, and then get Brian Thomas Jr. I think it's a great fit. It'll give Trevor Lawrence a nice young twitchy receiver who's a freak athlete to really just go up and get the ball for him. At 24, Arnold, I think it's a great pick. Great spot to move up, really just seizing the moment of getting a DB, a position you really need for the Lions. It's the damn Alabama DBs. I'm a little nervous, I can't lie, but DJ, Rome, and Keenan, I think they outpace them just a little bit. And then with the Packers at 25, I don't understand this at all. Me personally, I had Tyler Guyton way higher than Jordan Morgan on my board, and and especially with like Cooper DeJean on the board as well, just added a playmaker to the secondary. I feel like you could have gone a couple different routes with this pick, but I don't know. And I think it's really funny because there is film out there from the Senior Bowl practices of the new Bears edge rusher they got in the 4th round, Austin Booker, kind of bitching Jordan Morgan in those reps in the one-on-ones. So that makes me smile a little bit.
Yeah, this happens every year though with the Packers pick. They hate on him, think he's gonna be bad, then they end up letting him develop, and he becomes a very solid player. So we'll see how that works out for him in the future. But Chop Robinson, interesting pick for the Dolphins. I wasn't expecting them to go edge rusher, like you guys said. They already have a decent amount. I thought they would go somewhere else, but they need to be able to slow down some of these elite offenses in the AFC. So you might as well continue to add defensive talent, especially at the edge rushing position, to try to neutralize a quarterback. Quinyon Mitchell to the Eagles, very good pick. We had talked about how the Eagles' biggest weakness in their team was obviously, well, outside of their coordinators, their secondary. They go out and get Quinyon Mitchell, then they go out in the 2nd round and get Cooper DeJean. They're trying to reshape that secondary, and I think it's already going very well for them. Brian Thomas to the Jaguars. It sucks to see this because I wanted Brian Thomas Jr. on the Colts, but he's on the Jags now. I think this is a good pick. They have a very good trio now in Jacksonville as well with Ridley, Thomas, and Christian Kirk. Trevor Lawrence has no excuses. They also have Evan Engram. Trevor Lawrence has no excuses to go out next year and be a top 7 quarterback. I don't care.
Wait, they still have Ridley?
They paid him a bag, didn't they?
I thought Ridley went to the Titans.
Ridley's on the Titans.
Okay, I thought
you're right
for a second. I thought
you're right. Okay, so they got the replacement for Ridley. I thought they
Yeah.
paid him a bag again. Forgot about that. Yeah, he's on the Titans. Terrion Arnold to the Lions. They trade up for him. I think this is a very good move for the Lions. They needed the secondary and they went out and got it. And they got the best secondary available. He's been all over TikTok. I think he might have broken the record for most TikToks on draft
Yeah,
night
bro.
in NFL history.
Dropped a song too.
Yeah, it was scream to the fans. Good for him. And then Jordan Morgan. I see everyone hating on this pick. I would hate on it, but I can just see this pick in the future ending up just being perfect for Green Bay because they just have the luck that not a lot of teams have.
Yeah, I would agree with the Morgan take there, Blub. I really would.
Yeah.
But Chop, I think he might have one of the highest ceilings out of all the edge rushers in this class. I think it's a good fit, and I think he's got the supporting pieces where there's not too much pressure. He can just kind of do his thing, be Chop, you know. Great athlete. I think it's a good pick. Not necessarily for need, but you know, it's a good pick. Quinion Mitchell, arguably the best corner. I don't know. I hate ranking the corners because I think everyone kind of brings something different to the table, but whatever. I think it's a great pick. Mitchell, you kind of mentioned it. I love that Slay's there for him. I think it's just awesome that the Eagles are finally just putting pieces together on their defense because I feel like all they've been concerned about for the past like 7 years is their D line. And then they go and make a trade or something, whatever. But I feel like they've been laying on heavy on the front and the back end's kind of fell off and now they're addressing it. So, but I mean, that's kind of how they roll, you know, that's the Eagles mentality.
Yep.
And that's how their front office, what's their GM's name? I forget.
Howie.
Howie,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how he moves, man. That's how he moves.
Damn, that's hard.
That's a bar.
Brian Thomas, I think in another draft he might have been a top 15 pick. He has another guy super high ceiling. Really great athlete. I think he's got good hands. And I also think that a lot of Daniel's success is due to Thomas. I think after with a lot of the Daniels tape that I watched, I was like, Thomas, you know. I think it's a good pick, and I think Trevor Lawrence is great for him. Terrion Arnold might be the best in the class. I might like him a little more than Mitchell. And I'm not gonna lie, I love that he's coming in with all this energy. I think it's good for Detroit. I think it's good for the game. I just love it. I think he's a great pick. He's a strong guy. Like he's full, man.
Big.
Like he looks like he could press someone in the dirt. In the dirt. Some of these NFC North corners, these little midgets. Should I say that?
I think you're good.
But I mean, some of these NFC North receivers, I said corners, didn't I? And
Yeah.
NFC North receivers, you know, they're not. I don't think there's a lot of big guys in the NFC North, to be
Roma
honest.
Dunze.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's younger. I'm telling you, I think Arnold's gonna show up. He's gonna play some big boy football,
He's
right?
confident too. I like the confidence.
That too. And it's
I want my
massive.
DBs
It's
to
so
be
important
as
right now.
confident and cocky as possible.
It's
But the
so important
QBs
right
like
now.
Caleb Williams, they got to stay quiet. They got to be humble. They got to keep their mouth shut.
It's
Yeah.
it has nothing to do.
Arnold can just go out there and be himself.
Difference between cocky and cringy.
And look at who his
Her.
coaches are too. He's gonna be enabled to
Goes hard.
just be himself.
Yeah, no,
That's true.
I'm excited for him. I like him a lot.
Yeah.
Big frame. Need that.
Yeah. And then
so-
I already touched on Morgan.
No, yep. Okay, cool.
It was
Moving
Gabe
on.
Davis that went to the Jags. That's what
Yeah,
I
I
was
said
thinking.
that. Yeah. Gabe Davis went to the Jags. He 3 years
That's what I was
something.
thinking of.
We might as well just go to the last 7 here because why would we do 5 and 2? So
Well, we could talk about 33 too.
yeah, we can talk about 33 as well. I mean, I was gonna mention 33 later, but 26, Tampa takes Martin, center from Duke. I love this pick, best center in the draft, up there for the top inside offensive lineman in the draft. This is the pick that I thought the Packers were maybe gonna make. They decided not to. I think Tampa Bay is just really simple here. That was maybe their biggest need was center. They immediately addressed it with the best center in the draft, and I think he's going to make a difference day one. And I think for a team like Tampa, where it's like we don't really know, like, are they actually a good team or do they just have a good season? Getting players who are going to be impact players day one, I think, is just important in that situation. Tampa does that at 26. 27. Y'all laughed at me for having Darius Robinson at 29 a
It was
month
because
ago.
you forgot Keon Coleman
I
existed.
did forget Keon Coleman existed, but still, he goes here a couple picks earlier at 27. To Arizona. Arizona could definitely use some pass rush. They had a defense that overperformed last season. I think him and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to be impact players once again for Arizona this season. And I don't know. I'm just so blinded by the how great Marvin Harrison Jr. is that like whatever they could have done here, unless they had an absolute reach, I think works for them here. And at 27, you get a pass rusher that could go in there, and you got a guy that was in the SEC, has played against some of the best offensive linemen in the country in college. That can just go out there and hopefully adjust well to the NFL. I'm assuming that's what they're expecting early from him. 28, the Chiefs trade up with the Bills, which I mean, I love it for the Chiefs, but for the Bills, that doesn't really make any sense to me why they would give it to the Chiefs here. But the Chiefs were going to get the fastest receiver in combine history regardless. They get Worthy at 28. It just seems so obvious they were going to end up with him. But just like for the Bills to just like be like, yeah, it's not like you've been kicking our ass for the past 5 years. You can just have another weapon. And they just give it to him. The Chiefs probably would have got him regardless. I don't think the Bills were going to take him. I don't think the Cowboys were going to take him. Maybe San Francisco, but regardless, the Chiefs make the move they need to make. I think it's, of course, a great fit for them, and I'm excited to see how that looks for them next season. Good luck with that, Sar. But 29, Guyton to the Cowboys. They lost both their tackles in recent years. This is a value pick for them. They get to trade down with Detroit at 24, and they got a third round pick for that, which will probably be the end of the third round. But regardless, you get a third round pick. You get a guy that I could have seen them taking Guyton at 24. So I think that was a huge value move for them. And I like the move for them to move down, especially for a team like the Cowboys, who it seems like they would just want to stay put and just get a guy at where they are. But they decided to trade down. Smart move. And I really like Guyton for them. I think that'll be a good fit. 30, maybe one of my favorite picks in the draft. Nate Wiggins falls all the way to 30, and the Ravens get him here. It's just an absolute steal for the Ravens. He has size. He's a versatile corner. He's the fastest corner in this draft, probably. And now the Ravens have a ton of options in the secondary now. For a team that didn't have many holes last season, they just couldn't execute at the end game plan wise. But you get to add a DB in there who can immediately go and guard the fastest corner on the other team. And I just think that's an insane pick for them at 30. 31, I do not like this pick. I think it was kind of a reach for San Francisco to take Pearsall at 31. Slot just wasn't a need at all for them, as we know. I guess maybe they might try to move him to the outside. He has a little bit of size. He has a good jump ball as well, but at 31, this doesn't really make any sense to me when you got guys like Leggett and Coleman still on the board. To reach for Pearsall at 31 doesn't make much sense, but those were the following two picks. Bills trade back again, this time with the Panthers to take Leggett from South Carolina. I really like Leggett. Funny voice, as we know. He kind of hard to understand at times, but he's funny. I think he's a good receiver. Another SEC guy. Good combo of size and speed. Gives Bryce Young an outside threat who he just hasn't had his 1 year career so far. And adding a guy because he's been playing with Thielen and who was it Chark? Yeah, Chark
It
was
was
on the
Chark,
Panthers
yeah.
last year too. So you get a guy like Leggett who can go on the outside, beat a guy down the field, go get a jump ball. I think that's a great pick for Bryce Young. I think it's going to immediately help him. And I think I think the Bills would have taken him. So I like the trade up for the Panthers to trade up to get 32. Bills, of course, still get Keon Coleman. But regardless, I like all the picks in this range except for Pearsall at 31.
I mean, I think in the basically the back end of the first round, you always got to look out for the trade ups for the potential wanting to get that 5th-year option. The Ravens did it with Lamar back in 2018, I believe, when they traded into 32 to get that extra 5th-year option, and they just liked them in general. But the Bills, they ended up trading back twice. That was definitely a big notice for me. But at 26, Graham Barton, like you mentioned, Josh, is an impact starter day one. He could probably start anywhere on the O-line if you really wanted him to. So you could plug and play him during OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and just find out where he fits best with all your other guys. Get your best 5 out there. Protect Baker, who just got that new contract, and let him throw to Evans and Godwin and have success. Darius Robinson, I mean, maybe he goes 29 if Keon Coleman doesn't exist. Who knows? But I think it's a solid pick for the Cardinals. But walking away with Marvin Harrison and really any player at the end of the first round, it's a good draft class for you. Xavier Worthy at 28, where the Bills trade out. The last time the Bills traded out for the Chiefs was the Mahomes selection back in 2017. So hopefully this doesn't really bite them in the ass like it has the last damn near half decade plus. Xavier Worthy, he was some people's wide receiver 5 in this class because he speed kills. Everybody knows that. Henry Ruggs was taken first in his class because he was crazy 40 time, but I don't think this is going to be a Henry Ruggs situation. Not because it's a, not because he didn't go first overall in his class at the receiver spot, but I think that he's got more tools than Henry Ruggs does, and he fits a little bit better with what the Chiefs do. Tyler Guyton at 29, I like Guyton. I think he could have gone a lot earlier in this draft, especially given the run on offensive tackles we've had so far. But Cowboys being able to trade back 5 spots and still get what could have been just their guy, good value for him. Nate Wiggins, like you mentioned, Josh, fast corner, can really go out and maybe guard perhaps an Xavier Worthy in the AFC Championship game and prevent a deep pass. But regardless, it's a good pick. Just get a lot of guys in that defensive back room, or not prevent injuries, but prevent the lack of depth in case of injury. And you could start playing some positionless football and just get your best 7 DBs out there in the nickel package and just start that, or in the, Jesus, what is it? Dollar or dime? I don't know. Get your best 6 or 7 DBs out there and just let them go play ball. Ricky Pearsall, I agree with you, Josh. Kind of a reach. They could have gone AD Mitchell. I'll get into him, get into his analysis a little bit later, and I'm sure you will a little bit, Mike, too. But I mean, it's not a bad pick. Slight reach. He could fit kind of well with Debo and maybe Ayuk if one of them aren't heading to Pittsburgh as we speak. We don't know yet. We don't know that just yet, but that is something that I've heard thrown around a little bit within my vast NFL connections that we all know I have. And Xavier Legette, I think it's a solid pick. Bryce Young gives him an outside weapon, and it's just going to be a good pick. But not Pittsburgh. Buffalo at 33, Keon Coleman gives Josh Allen an X receiver to just throw it up and let him go get it. I would have gone AD Mitchell. I think AD Mitchell was vastly more talented and had a higher ceiling than really any of these receivers taken in the late 20s. And I mean, I guess it was just because he didn't interview well or his attitude on the plays that he would take off, I guess. But Colts, I think, got a steal. I'll get into that during our winners and losers section. But I definitely would have gone AD Mitchell, but Keon Coleman is definitely no slouch either.
Yeah, no, I think those two are both fine. Ricky Pearsall is kind of the odd man out in my position, in my opinion. Going 31 to the Niners, I was not expecting that pick at all. But luckily, the 49ers are the 49ers, and they are so good that they're able to kind of get away with something like this, and people won't bat an eye too much. But Graham Barton to the Buccaneers, good pick. Ryan Jensen's done. You need to help your offensive line. I think that's a great pick for the Buccaneers. Darius Robinson, like you guys said, basically, when you are able to get Marvin Harrison early in the draft to help Kyler Murray out in your offense, you can really make almost any pick in that range at the 27, and you'll be perfectly fine. I think this will be great for him, help the defense out, especially the run game. Xavier Worthy, very interesting for the Bills to trade back just because, especially with the Chiefs, they have to know that there's going to be backlash with that. They probably knew who the Chiefs were going to select, and now you have the Chiefs after you lost to them this season and probably your best chance. They have reshaped their receiver room into Xavier Worthy. They added Hollywood Brown. We'll see what goes on with Rashee Rice. I expect he'll be able to play next year. So Mahomes will have weapons next year. Tyler Guyton to the Cowboys. Micah Parsons looked like he was heated at this draft pick, but I think they made the right move, helped the offensive line. Again, their roster is pretty complete. It's just they have to be able to go out there and get it done finally. Ravens, great pick. Nate Wiggins helped the defense out, the cornerbacks. You lost your defensive coordinator. I think that's a good pick for him. Like I said, Ricky Pearsall, interesting pick. I wasn't expecting it. I don't think he should have went in the first round at all. I think AD Mitchell's better than him. Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette. But we'll see how they use him. Xavier Legette, I love this pick for the Panthers. They had Bryce Young with basically Adam Thielen and no weapons. Now they add Xavier Legette, he loves the deep ball, man. And they added Deontay Johnson as well. So Bryce Young has weapons, and then Keon Coleman to the Bills. I absolutely love this pick for Buffalo. I'm big Keon Coleman guy. Love him. Great guy. He's played basketball, very athletic. He's been one of the most seen players after the draft in all of his meetings and interviews so far with Macy's, being out on the football field, the cooler.
He was
He has
begging
a
for
big
that Macy's
personality.
sponsorship. He was
I know he
begging
wanted
for
it.
it.
Hey, he's a funny guy though. I hope he becomes one of the best receivers in the league with Josh Allen as his quarterback. That'd make me extremely happy.
Yeah, so starting off with Barton, the Bucks, I love the Bucks. because they have the same mascot as the Raiders. But I love the Bucks. I love what they're doing. I love Baker. I love Mike Evans, and I think their O-line was probably their biggest flaw on offense. And now you're bringing in a guy who's probably going to help you out with the run, which you absolutely need. And I think it's just a good pick. Darius Robinson, another edge. Someone else said he's kind of like Chop. I agree with that. I think he's kind of raw, not totally there, but I think if he's what's nice for Darius Robinson is that I feel like there's not necessarily anyone else like who's gonna be in there who might not be like more talented than him, but I feel like he's in the right place still. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like he's in the right place. And then Worthy. So at first I was really hurt, and I was like, man, they just got another Tyreek Hill. And then I thought about it, and I was like, there's no way that Xavier Worthy is gonna be better than Tyreek Hill.
I agree. He's not nearly as twitchy.
So I mean, Rashee Rice might have even been better.
I agree. I think
Yeah,
Rashee
I
Rice is really good.
What's that?
Two different
I said I think
play
Rashee
styles,
Rice is
though.
great.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think he might be better. And so I'm not, at first I was like shaking a little, and then I'm like, you know what? It's not that great of a pick, and you traded up for him. Like,
be
Mecole
denial,
Hardman's
though.
fast as hell too, though.
Could be
I'll give
denial,
you
though.
that.
I'll give you that. Mecole Hardman is
So was John
really, really
Ross.
fast, and yeah,
that's what I'm
exactly.
saying. That's what I'm saying. I'm not too scared about it. It's a good pick. It's a good fit. It fills a hole that they need receivers. But I'm not as scared as I originally was. Guyton, once again, kind of similar to the Bucks. I feel like O-line is probably their weakest spot, and their team I think is kind of already there, but they're just you know reloading. Uh, Wiggins, probably my favorite pick out of this group we've done. I think their defense last year was probably one of the more innovative defenses we've seen in the last few years. And I think you're gonna see a lot of teams playing like them next year. And I think you bring in a guy like Wiggins, it just adds another like domino into the whole, and it's like, what are you gonna do now? Do we have another corner who brings something else completely different to the table than all our other corners? We still have Kyle Hamilton, who's a 6'4" safety, who's gonna be at the line of scrimmage every play. Like, come on. I love this pick. Pearsall, I do think they reached, but I get it because Pearsall might have the best hands in the draft. Very, very good hands. I don't even know who to comp him to because I've never seen anyone like Ricky Pearsall before. I genuinely mean that. But I get it. I get it. It's reach, but I get it,
I got a comp.
And Leggett, Bryce Young needs help, but I feel like Coleman might have been a better pick for Young. Especially, the Bills traded back. I don't know. Whatever. And then I love Keon Coleman. He's probably my wide receiver 5 or 6. I really think he's the truth. He's got another guy, good hands, and great athlete. So I'm like Blub said, I hope the best for him. And Josh Allen's gonna be throwing him lasers.
We're interlinked with Keon Coleman. I see. I didn't think about that. Florida State and Michigan State.
Wait, why
Yeah.
Florida State?
That's where you
Miami.
played. Oh, you're a
Miami.
Miami fan.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Why did I think you were a
whoa.
Florida State fan?
Whoa.
Never mind.
I
Yeah,
mean,
no, you should hate him.
I know Keon Coleman
You should hate him.
because of that.
Oh, you met him?
I met him. That's not a lie.
I think maybe, and this is a very loose comp here for Pearsall, but I think he's maybe a worse version of Odell. He can play on the inside, he can play on the outside.
I see that.
But not
totally
as.
see
Are we
maybe
saying
not
that
as
because of the
athletic.
flashy one-hand catch that was catching?
Hey.
the
That
years
definitely
into
is
those
in the back.
series?
He shows hands
Yeah.
on
It's in the back of
on
my head.
every other
It's for
catch.
sure.
It
the
was
back of my
against.
head.
It was against Charlotte, but that was a catch, man.
Yeah, it was. When I think of him, that's literally the image that pops in my head.
It's
I
sticking
love
the mid out
great
there.
hands.
But
Great.
the indecisiveness of like, is he a slot receiver? Is he an outside receiver? Has a good jump ball. I feel like those qualities are similar to Odell. And
Is there really like an indecisiveness to that, or is that versatility?
That's
I don't
versatility.
think he's phenomenal at either, though.
He can do it
Okay.
because he has hands.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it for
That's
sure.
fair.
Part of it, but we'll see how it plays out in there, especially if they trade Ayuk. But We can move on to some winners and losers. I'm not going to go super in detail here because we did just talk about all 32 picks. But my winners of the first round were the Bears, the Cardinals, the Colts, the Eagles, the Lions, and the Ravens. I think those teams addressed their needs the best, as well as got the most value for their picks. And then my losers here, loose on the Falcons here because it could end up working out great for them. It could end up where, oh man, maybe we should have taken Dallas Turner at 8 or taken a player that was going to be impact right away if they end up being as close as they could be to being competitive. The Broncos, like I said, I don't like the Knicks pick. Bengals, they kind of got screwed out of theirs. Packers, I don't love. And then the 49ers, who we just spoke about.
So maybe I'm pulling my Oprah shit right now, but I think all four of us get a win for our teams in this first round. The
I agree.
Lions,
I
I
agree.
think they did the right thing trading up for a DB. And then in the second round, they also went DB again. One of their bigger issues last year was secondary help. And they addressed the pass rush issue in free agency with Reader and Davenport. And they go and get 2 DBs right away with the departure of Gardner Johnson as well. And I guess Cam Sutton. But
And kick rocks on
they
his way out. All bark,
but
no bite, man.
regardless, they addressed some needs in free agency in the draft, and in the draft they doubled down at DB, and I think it was a great idea. The Bears, how can you not mark them as a W with Caleb and Rome, who could be a great duo for the next decade plus? The Raiders, I love that they got Brock Bowers. They went best player available. He can be a weapon for them. And Jackson Powers Johnson in the second round, I think that was great as well. And then the Colts getting AD Mitchell at what was it, 52, I think it was, and then Latu. Those were two of like my guys in this draft who I would have been fine with the Bears taking regardless, whether it was a massive trade down with a team in the 20s and taking AD Mitchell, or at least early on in the draft process, I was fine with that, but I was huge on him before. And Latu, who I would have been fine with him taking at 9. So seeing all four of our teams, I think it's probably a first time in a long time that all four of our teams had wildly successful drafts. And then not one of our 4 teams, but the Eagles, I think, had a great draft as well with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in the second round. I think they kind of like the Lions. They double down on DB. They can play those guys kind of not wherever they want, but they get talent back there and it'll help them out both now and in the future. So those are my winners. And then losers, like you said, Josh, kind of loose on the Falcons because it doesn't help them right now, but if it works out, it's a great insurance policy for a year to maybe 3 down the line if Kirk doesn't work out. And then the 49ers, I think they could have gone Keon Coleman or AD Mitchell, and I think it would have been smarter for them. So
Yeah, I agree. I think all four of our teams had very good drafts. I wrote down 3 winners though. I have the Colts. Being able to get their best defensive player available, their choice of whoever they wanted, very impressive. They got AD Mitchell after trading back in the second round. They said Shane Steichen was very adamant to get AD Mitchell, and they ended up being able to get him. We talked about the Latu injuries. Hopefully that's okay. With AD Mitchell, the concern was that I guess allegedly he has diabetes, and when he doesn't take his medications or something, he can get hard to coach and just become a diva. I just don't really see that being an issue. And if the Colts drafted him, I don't see that being that much of a concern with them either. I think he would be a great NFL player. And that is another solid wide receiver room with Pittman, Josh Downs, Alec Pierce, and now AD Mitchell. So that's very fun to watch. And I am very excited to see Anthony Richardson be able to give them the ball. I have the Cardinals, really just because they did what they had to do and they said they didn't consider trading back. They wanted Marvin Harrison Jr. They got the best player. Kyler Murray looked ecstatic in the video that he posted. I'm just so excited for that dude. I've talked about it a lot. And then they got Darius Robinson, a nice guy to help Gannon with that defense, help stop the run a little bit. And then I have the Eagles. We talked about their big issue being the secondary. They go out and get Cooper DeJean, Kenyon Mitchell, sure up that secondary. They got Vic Fangio as their defensive coordinator now. He should have a field day with those guys. They got Kellen Moore as their new OC. So I expect this team to be competing for a Super Bowl again this season. And then for losers, outside of the teams you guys kind of said, the Broncos and the Falcons, it's kind of hard to decipher. I mean, really, we don't know how these players are going to turn out. Where it's all guessing, obviously. But I wrote down just a couple ones. Micah Parsons, loser. His ball knowledge does not seem to be there. He might have CTE at a very young age. He thought his division was the best in the NFL last year. That was just wildly untrue. CJ Stroud was cooking him all night. And then yeah, I just have the Falcons and possibly why didn't they pick JJ McCarthy, a young quarterback, to let develop instead of Penix? But I talked about that earlier. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think all our teams, Lions, Raiders, Bears, Colts, all great drafts. But my two biggest winners, I'm probably gonna say Bears and Cardinals. I think they both kind of just they they made good picks, and I feel like everyone's gonna come in, they're gonna play, and I helped Kyler out, which I think is the biggest thing. Um, for that. And then the Bears, they're coming in with a ton of weapons. They're gonna look like a brand new team next year. It's gonna be cool to see. Uh, yeah, that's really all from me. Oh, losers.
Oh
Losers.
yeah, losers. Yeah.
My biggest loser, you guys are gonna be a little bit shocked here. A little bit. I'm gonna say the Kansas City Chiefs.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah,
I
not
like
shocked
it.
considering
You know, I
how
got the Bears
you-
as a loser too. Fuck them.
I'm not shocked considering how you were talking about Worthy. So
Yeah, yeah.
maybe some context clues in there, but
I just don't think they came in. You just won the Super Bowl. The way they've been at it, I don't know if they're coming at it for three. I think they're content with two. It's kind of the vibe I'm getting.
with Mahomes and
Interesting.
Kelsey and
It's a
Andy
hot
Reid,
take.
it's hard to imagine them
Mahomes-
taking their foot off the gas.
I
Mahomes is
think
more worried about his WWE career now.
that's what I'm saying.
So came on here to just give anti-Chiefs being good propaganda.
I
I
like
love
it.
it. I love it.
First round elimination next year.
It's all I think about when I go to sleep at night.
I mean, how much have we talked shit about the Packers and Vikings, Josh? Like collectively?
I've talked a
On
lot
this
of shit
pod.
about the Bears, probably more than all of them, but yeah.
Probably.
But yeah, I want to, before we get into some later round picks here, I just got a couple I want to talk about, which I've already probably said before. But reminder that draft grades are fucking stupid and they don't matter at all. And if your team has an A plus, that means just as much as your team having an F because
Oh,
we don't know shit. I mean, look at the Lions last year, bottom of the barrel in draft grades, and that worked out great. But some later round picks here. I think all mine are actually second rounders, but we talked about a few of them. Keon Coleman, of course, going to the Bills. I love that pick. Jalen Polk to the Pats. That's one of my favorite picks in the second round. I think he's potential to be really, really, really good. And giving your guy and Drake May some weapons, especially young weapons early on, I think that's great. And we saw a lot of teams pair quarterbacks with receivers, like of course the Bears did as well. Cooper DeJean. Oh, and Jalen Polk. Crazy way to spell Jalen. Have you guys ever seen Jalen
Yeah.
spelled like that?
No, I've not.
JA-LYNN. I like it.
I respect it.
I will say about him, I think Pats fans are gonna like him more than Drake May from the start.
Probably. It's also easy to blame and be like, oh, the quarterback sucks, but he would have been great. And he gets a couple deep passes. Cooper DeJean. Is it DeJean or DeJean? I feel like I
think
see
it's-
both.
I think it's DeJean. I haven't heard it
I thought it was
said
French.
as DeJean.
I thought it was
French.
French.
I
DeJean.
could be wrong. I have no idea.
I don't know.
I don't
But-
speak French, so
Yeah, I don't know. But he goes to the
oui, oui.
Eagles. They doubled up on cornerbacks, which you talked a lot about. JPJ to the Raiders. You get some interior O-line help there. There was a lot of mocks with him going in the first round, so getting him in the second round was a great pick for them. And then Rakestraw to the Lions. I've already spoke on that one, but
Oh, you're good. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, Keon Coleman to the Bills, that's a big one. Colts getting AD Mitchell, that was a big one for me. The Bears getting Torrey Taylor, punter in the fourth round. Some comparisons I've been hearing thrown around there, considering they're both Iowa people. Caitlin Clark is to the Indiana Fever as Torrey Taylor is to punters. So I don't know, but maybe it's a stretch, maybe it's wishful thinking, but he's got a boot on him. Lord, thank God that I don't have to watch Trenton Gill punt the ball again. He was ranked 37 out of 37 eligible punters from last year.
yeah, even
And
you know you're
considering-
going to be watching a lot of punting.
and considering how often I had to watch punting last year, I'm glad I don't have to watch him for multiple reasons because our offense should be on the field a lot more often this year. So those are some of my some good day 2, early day 3 picks for me.
yeah, I don't have too many. Troy Franklin to the Broncos. Reunite him with Bo Nix. I'm not the highest on Troy Franklin, but getting him back as college quarterback could be very nice. I loved the Ravens getting TJ Tampa, I think in the fourth round. Another secondary piece for them. They're going to have a very deep secondary. And then just another kind of wacky pick that I like, Spencer Rattler to the Saints. Maybe he becomes something. You never know. Maybe Derek Carr goes down, Spencer Rattler comes in, and he's the next Tom Brady. I don't know.
QB1.
QB1.
Yeah, I only really got two guys. I think Keon Coleman, I know we talked about it, but I think they need him. They need him bad with Diggs gone. I think that might be the day 2 steal of the draft right there. I know it's the first one, but I think it's the best one. And I also like JPJ, of course. I think the Raiders really need that interior help on the right side. Um, and I think they're not going to put him at center. They announced him as a guard, so I'm excited for that because I think Andre James is a pretty decent center. And then they had Parham a few years ago. I think their O line's set, and I think AOC is going to show up to training camp as QB1 and
Yes,
leave
sir.
training camp as QB1 with this brand new Ferrari of an O line he just got.
I like it.
Yes, sir.
But
Yes,
that
sir.
about does it for our NFL draft recap here. I want to congratulate Sar for being our first ever multi-appearance guest on the pod. 2 appearances now, passing Rengel at the tie for one. But
Bengals
yeah,
on next show.
yeah. Follow him at Real Raider Lover on Twitter. And Sar, thank you for joining us.
Peace.
All right, we're gonna do a little NBA update here. Some of the first round series are over now. A lot of them are 3-1 about to end. So we figured we'd do a quick update here after our draft segment. Starting off with the Celtics Heat. Celtics are up 3-1. Well, I gotta pull up what games are tonight because it's Tuesday as we're recording.
Knicks, Cavs.
Knicks and Sixers are going on now. So is Cavs Magic, and then 9:30 Eastern is Bucks Pacers.
Bucks Pacers got it. Okay, cool. Celtics Heat. Celtics are up 3-1. The Heat without Jimmy Butler just don't really stand a chance in the series, sadly for them. They did win game 2 by hitting 23 3-pointers, which if they can replicate that again, then maybe they can go steal another game, but I just don't see that happening. Biggest note of the series, though, Porzingis got hurt, and that just heavily affects Boston going forward. He may be the most important piece of the Celtics right now as far as just how he fits and what he does for this team. And I saw the Shams report or the Woj report, whoever it was. It was like he is expected to miss at least several games. That's just such a vague, at least several. What does that even mean? But I guess he's missing at least several games. So that tells me maybe he doesn't play for the rest of this series. Maybe he doesn't play for some of the next series. But I think the Celtics are going to get it done regardless. I think they're going to finish him off in 5 or 6, depending on if Miami can go nuclear and from 3 again. Maybe they extend it to 6. But I'm going to say I think the Celtics win this one in 5 now.
Yeah, Celtics should have this one locked up tomorrow night. They play on Wednesday at 6:30 Central, 7:30 Eastern. But like you said, the only reason the series isn't over now is because the Heat had a historic performance from beyond the arc, and it only led to a 10-point win. When in game 1, I think the Celtics won by like 30, and every game since then, it's been really not close. Porzingis injury is something to monitor for the Celtics going forward in future series. And I think Tatum tweaked his ankle a little bit on one of those, on like a post whistle jump shot where Bam kind of contested and accidentally got under him into his landing spot. He got like a flagrant one or something for it, but I don't know for sure how serious that ankle injury is, but it could be something to look after. But I expect the Celtics to take care of the series next game.
Yeah, I expect the Celtics to take care of the series next game. Jaime Jaquez is out as well now. They would have been better off to just let the Bulls win that play-in game and at least have a healthy-ish team go in and play the Celtics. But Celtics should just keep cruising. They have no reason to lose.
Yep, moving on to Sixers. Knicks here. The Knicks are up 3-1 in the current game right now being played tonight. It is 70-69 Knicks at the end of the third quarter. That game is in MSG. When I was preparing for this earlier, I was looking at the games today, and it was Knicks game cheapest ticket was $400. The next 2 games were like $30 and like $25. So the Knicks, I mean, we've seen the fans in the street after every game. They're electric. I want to see them go far. I feel like seeing them make a run would be cool. Embiid, he's doing all he can, but he's hobbling. He's playing well, but you can tell he's just not himself out there. Tyrese Maxey has had a couple great moments and games in the series so far. He had a bad game 4 though, and that cost them and was probably the most important game of the series. In that game 4 in Philly, we had fuck Embiid chants. The Knicks fans were there in that game, which for Philly, you don't expect to see that, but the Knicks fans were in the house in Philly. I think that tells us everything we need to know about this series just right there. Jalen Brunson been phenomenal. He had 47 points in game 4 efficiently too. I expect this to be over in New York tonight in 5, but we'll see. It's like I said, it's a 1-point game, so go either way.
New York Knicks, I owe you an apology. I was not familiar with your game, and you have come with a different type of energy this series. I expected the six. I don't even know what I predicted in the early season, but I know I said on like a TikTok, uh, I think beginning of April, saying, yeah, I don't expect the Knicks to take more than 2 games against Philly in this series. And then it's only come back to bite me in the ass. I got people commenting on it saying like, "Oh, it's 1-0. Oh, it's 2-0." Like it's been a not a running gag, but it hasn't looked pretty for me. But Jalen Brunson's a big reason why. He, like you mentioned, the 47 points, the Knicks playoff record, which is unbelievable, honestly, considering they had Melo for a certain amount of time. But I mean, I'm sorry. I was not expecting this. The Knicks they're just playing well, and Embiid and Maxey are not taking advantage as much as I thought they would. But I mean, Embiid is also playing a little hurt, or even very hurt, if you want to say that. But I guess the Knicks are showing why they're the 2 seed. They got a well-rounded group, and they should probably move on to the next round tonight.
They do, and I think there was one of us who picked the Knicks to advance, and that would be me. I picked them to advance in 7. Right now, they
In
are
7, it doesn't count.
Right now, it looks like they could do that quicker than I thought they could have, but we will see. There's still a lot of ball to be played. Embiid has been pretty good this series considering all he's going through. He's got still dealing with the knee injury. I guess he has Bell's palsy too, which I don't know if that's really affecting his game, but it's like when his face is a little droopy. But respect him for going out there and putting his body on the line with these injuries. And it is the playoffs, you have to, but he's still playing great basketball, even though he is a foul baiter. But the Knicks, they just seem to be the better all-around team. Josh Hart's been phenomenal. He would give his life to get just one offensive rebound, so you got to respect that from a guy. And Thibodeau's been he has his team playing hard, and the Knicks they're a fun team to watch, especially with the fans. It's better when the Knicks are good at basketball for the NBA.
I agree.
So
I definitely agree.
it's like the Bulls.
Exactly.
It's those big fan bases that just
care a lot.
The crowd gets into it, and
it's good when Philly's good too.
It honestly is.
Lakers.
Yeah.
Nah, maybe not them with LeBron.
But moving on here to Bucks Pacers. This series, Pacers up 3-1. This series would have been phenomenal if everyone was healthy. I mean, Dame played really, really good without Giannis in the couple games he had there. But now Dame, Giannis, and Middleton are all hurt. I think Middleton's going to play tonight. I know Giannis and Dame are ruled out. Unless at least 2 of those 3 play, I think this series is over. And I think it's going to be over tonight, man. I just don't see how the Bucks are going to be able to win without their 2 stars. This has just been impossible to predict because of injuries, but I don't know. I just don't see a world where Milwaukee comes back without those 2 unless they steal one tonight and one or both of those 2 come back next game. I think that's the only path for them. Unfortunate end to the season for the Bucks, but just what a weird season this was for them.
Yeah, I severely underestimated the severity of the Giannis injury. I figured he'd be back after game 2, maybe game 3 at the latest, but it doesn't even look like he's coming even close to returning at any point in the series with the way it's been going. Pacers, they took advantage of the 2 home games. They split in Milwaukee, and then they went 2-0 in Indy. I said it before, I'll say it again. Like, when that place gets bumping, it is crazy. They get loud, they get passionate. They had Caitlin Clark before one of the games, revving the Indy car before the game. It was electric. So it's a different environment in there, and the Bucks without their 2 star players. I mean, I called it. Dame was able to do a good amount of stuff. He was averaging 34.5 through the first 2 games in Milwaukee, and they just no one else around him was able to help. I think it last game or the game before where Middleton had his 35 or 40 bomb.
Yeah, before, and then he got hurt. This game,
and then he got hurt. So I mean, he tried his best to be the 2nd star, but it just didn't work out. Dame got hurt last game. He missed a good chunk of the first quarter and some of the second. And when you're relying on Patrick Beverley and his just veteran leadership to carry you in a series where you're down 2-1 and now 3-1, it's not looking good for you. So congrats to the Pacers. They're going to get another series against probably the Knicks in what should be a crazy good series between Brunson and Halliburton. And I mean, Siakam and OG Anunoby, that it's going to be lot of electric home and environments in that next series.
Did Dame play last game? I thought he missed a game now. I thought he got hurt 2 games
I
ago.
might be forgetting a game, but
he did not play in the last game. Yeah,
he got hurt in game 3,
okay.
And that was the game where he came back and then
he had a different injury.
Yeah,
they were all kind of merging together.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like,
weird.
For some reason, I feel like these games that are the series that are done are like they played 5 or 6 games, but then Cavs and Magic, I feel like I've only seen like 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, I barely watched that series.
I don't think the Cavs and I refuse to believe the Cavs and Magic have played a game yet.
Yeah, bro.
I mean, they might as well not have it 0-0. It's just best of 3 right now.
I'll tune
Yeah.
in game 7.
Exactly. You don't want to count your eggs before they hatch, though. You never know what the Bucks could do. Chris Middleton is one of the best players to touch this planet in like every other game. So if it's every other game, he could go off, keep him alive. Maybe they get Lillard back. I don't know. I don't see it happening though. Pacers and the Knicks. I think Halliburton has some beef with the Knicks media, so that would be fun to watch. But yeah, Pacers. They get a lucky round here considering the Bucks have dealt with all these injuries. So a lot of injuries on this side of the bracket.
Yep, and moving on to Cavs Magic. The series, like we said, is tied 2-2. Both these teams did win their home games. I think a big part of why this series hasn't mattered just because there just hasn't been any close games, especially the 2 games in Orlando were just blowouts for the Magic. They responded in those back-to-back games after going down 2-0. Paolo hasn't even been really that great for them. He had 9 points in game 4. Franz Wagner, though, had 34 in that game, so he was great for them. The Cavs guards just have to be better, especially on the road. Donovan Mitchell has to be better. I mean, I assume he's going to show up for them tonight. That game's currently underway, right? Yeah, 48-47 at half. Sixers are back up by 4 now, but yeah, Cavs guards just have to be better, especially on the road. Magic's offense was great in their wins. We know how great their defense is. Their offense was great in those 2 games in Orlando. Can they do that 4 times out of 7? We're gonna see. I hope for their sake that they can. I would love to see this Magic team go far. I think they're a fun team. Well, maybe fun isn't the word, but they're a young team, and I like to see the young teams go far. And for the Cavs, just the third quarter, similar to the Suns, who we'll be talking about here soon. They've just been killed in these third quarters, and it's the opposite of the Warriors effect, where they would just fuck around for 2 quarters, then go crazy in the third. Cavs got to figure that out, come out of half, make better adjustments, and hope for their sake win 2 out of these last 3.
I haven't watched really. I think I've watched maybe a total of 1 quarter of this entire series.
Oh,
so
you
far.
really haven't watched this
Oh
series?
no!
I was
dude,
like
I told myself
semi-joking. but-
because every single one of their games has been at the same time as another one. So
Yeah.
like I've been prioritizing watching Bucks Pacers over it, Knicks Sixers, especially after the first couple games I was watching over it. Celtics Heat, I even think, just because they were on TNT one night and Cavs Magic were on just NBA TV.
Yeah.
I just picked the better broadcast. So I mean, I haven't hardly watched any of it. Donovan Mitchell has been, from what I've seen, maybe this is just box score watching, he's been damn near a non-factor. Evan Mobley, I mean, he's been taking Paolo out of the game, so that's solid. But if the role players like Wagner, both Wagners, if they're gonna be solid in relief of those stars that the Magic have, or the star, then maybe they can win this in 6 or 7. But I still trust the Cavs to take care of business. They've got the best player in the series in Donovan Mitchell, and we've seen what he can do on any given night in the playoffs. He could drop 40, 50. So I think Cavs still take this series.
Yeah, if you wanted to watch this game tonight, you would have to again tune into NBA TV to watch it. None of the games have really been that entertaining. All blowouts, not really close. It took them a while to finally score 100 in this series. I haven't watched too much of it, so I don't really have that much of an opinion. But it's good to have defensive basketball in the playoffs. They're just fighting to see who would get demolished by the Celtics.
and who can actually get on a national broadcast. That's what they're
Yeah.
fighting for. But moving on to the West here, OKC and the Pelicans. OKC sweeps NOLA without Zion. First win in a series for OKC in 8 years since 2016. SGA, he was good at times this series. He does shoot under 30% from 3 in the series, but they still win by a sweep. I don't know if I expect him to do that again, and if they're going to be able to dominate like that with him not shooting well from beyond the arc, that's huge. Giddy has actually made a good amount of threes in this series, or did. Brandon Ingram's been pretty bad, man. Like, I know it was a big issue with him and Zion couldn't play together, but then he's here playing without Zion, and he wasn't really that good, to be honest. Pretty inefficient overall. The Pels really had no chance without Zion, but I think even with Zion, I could see OKC still sweeping them. I think OKC is that good of a team. It's funny to joke about, like, oh, we joked about it with the Diamondbacks and the World Series last year. But, oh, the power of friendship. They've got here about just a bunch of young guys who none of them are, or we got maybe a couple guys who are super
That's
talented.
the magic.
Yeah, but I mean, in hoops, I think it's a real thing. Like, just having guys that like playing together and are good friends, and
It's
they
like
could actually,
kumbaya.
Yeah, and communicate. Like it's different than football or baseball where you need the talent. You need guys that are super, super talented. If you just have guys that play well together and they're well coached and everybody does their job and nobody's super inefficient, everybody's disciplined, you can win a ton of basketball games like that. That's what we're seeing from OKC. They also have a ton of talent as well, of course, but even a lot of the role players have just stepped up perfectly. I love this OKC team.
Yeah, they're extremely fun to watch. I've seen, I think, 15 of the 16 quarters that series was compared to the Cavs and Magic, only one of the 16. But this Thunder team, all regular season, they've been so fun to watch. Shea, when he's on, he can shoot like 12 or 15 from the field and still knock down a couple threes. He's scoring 30 a night, and he can do it without shooting the ball like a Curry or a Damian Lillard. But in this series, he hasn't been all that effective, and part of that has been he got hobbled a little bit last game, I believe, where he was I don't remember what happened, but I think he got a slight injury, but the rest of the team, like J-Dub, Chet Holmgren, they picked up the slack, and they really delivered, and they allow them to get a little bit of rest for this Clippers Mavs series. It's probably going to go 7, at least it has to go 6, might go 7, but that's going to be huge if any of their players are at the very least a little banged up. That the rest is going to help. I don't think this series changes too much if Zion is playing. It's really unfortunate that we couldn't see Zion against Chet in the paint. I feel like that'd be a really fun matchup to watch on occasion, but unfortunately, we're not living in that world right now. Thunder take care of business against an inferior team, and like you mentioned, what the hell happened to Brandon Ingram? You got to imagine he'd be in a better spot right now, but he's not. But congrats on the Thunder for moving on.
Yeah, Brandon Ingram was really bad. CJ McCollum was very poor as well. The Thunder were just a better team. The power of friendship really dominated for them. Um, Shea was all right. He wasn't phenomenal. Chet Holmgren was very good. This is just a young team that loves playing basketball. They said they weren't going to be scared of the lights, and they weren't. So, uh, props to the Thunder for that.
What a pro wants. What a
Yeah.
pro need. Every single break. But
Am I the only one who doesn't hate that commercial?
I don't actually hate it that much either. I feel like I haven't seen it that much, or I just
I
don't
don't
pay
hate
attention.
any of those commercials that have been like
I hate the
staple
Google
of-
ones that kind of annoying. The Google one's kind of
The
annoying.
picture one? Oh,
Yeah.
that one goes kind of hard.
That one I see all the time. I don't know. I think everybody just feels that way with repeating commercials. It just gets so it's because it's the time of year where we're just staring at
Whopper
the TV.
Whopper was, I think it was
That was
pretty good.
iconic though.
And
That
I
was just
love how they
iconic.
branched off of it and did the same like the same pace but different words. Like I mean,
What an era. What an era. Moving on to Nuggets Lakers here. I don't actually have a ton to say about this. It's Nuggets and the Lakers, exactly what we expected. Nuggets beat the Lakers in 5 games. Lakers actually played pretty good at times this series, exactly like they did in the Western Conference Finals last year. But Denver is just their kryptonite. Overall, Jamal Murray, 2 game winners on a bum leg. He's just truly a guy that can flip the switch. He's never phenomenal in the regular season. That's why we don't see him with all the All-Star and All-Pro or All NBA recognition, because he just doesn't really do shit in the regular season. He plays well, but nothing crazy. And then he comes in the playoffs and he's just fantastic. I don't take much from the series just because we know what it is. We knew what we were getting. I think the Nuggets Wolves is going to be a fantastic series. I'm super excited to watch that series. And now it's just the biggest question is what happens with LeBron? Does he stay with LA? Does he go somewhere else? He's not retiring. Anybody that thinks he's retiring, if you think that he's gonna get up and leave without doing a tour, like we've seen guys way lower than his stature do, i.e. Paul Pierce, it's there is no chance in hell he doesn't want that tour just the way he is. So I don't think we're gonna get any surprise retirement from Bron. I think we'll know when that time's coming.
yeah, I completely agree, and that kind of segues right into my point about this entire series because I've not really anything to say about it except for Denver. They're one of the best teams in the league. We knew this would happen, but where do the Lakers go from here? Does LeBron, if you're somehow able to keep LeBron, it's only going to be for a 1 or 2 year deal. You traded all your young players for Anthony Davis, and yeah, you got a championship out of it, but really with an asterisk because Mickey ring. I mean, come on, we can't ignore that. But what do you do now? I mean, you've got a couple young guys like Reeves and Hachimura, and I guess no, D'Lo's not even young anymore. He's approaching 30 if he's not already there. That draft was a long time ago. But like, what do you do? You're going to lose your superstar in free agency probably because he's going to want to go somewhere that can guarantee they're going to draft Bronny or something, or he stays there and then you're going to end up paying him 45, 50 million a year, and it's just going to be a whole lot of nothing. So where do the Lakers go from here? That's my biggest question. And it's going to be a similar conversation I'm having about the Suns in our next series.
Yeah, the Lakers said they wanted to pay LeBron whatever they could to keep him stay, allegedly. They also said they'd be open to drafting Bronny. So, you never know. I hope he stays with the Lakers at this point, just end there. The Lakers were in every single one of these games. They were all very close. I mean, they could have easily taken two of those games and they could be up 3-2. But they did not. The Nuggets were just a better team overall. Jokic didn't even play out of his mind like he has against the Lakers in the past. Michael Porter Jr. was phenomenal in this series. Jamal Murray was just does what he does against the Lakers. He's clutch and put the dagger in their heart twice. So this Nuggets team is very good in the playoffs. They know how to win games.
All right, we made it.
I'm going to sit back and grab the popcorn for this. This ought to be good.
Before, when I was thinking about what I'm going to say on here, I was thinking about just not giving anything and just opening the floor for questions and just fielding questions because I felt like maybe it would be easier. But then I realized I have some points I want to get across, so I'm going to do that. As we all know, the Wolves did sweep the Suns, dominated 3 of those 4 games. It's not a situation like it was with the Lakers last year getting swept by the Nuggets. They got straight up swept by the Wolves. Jaden McDaniels was huge. He was great on the defensive end. He was a phenomenal rebounder. He had 1,000,000 second chance points this series. He was huge for them. Every single game this series was a different issue. Rebounding was one of them. Suns stars not playing well. Suns role players not playing well when the stars do play well. Shooting no threes. I mean, there was just a ton of issues this series. But moving on from the series, because at this point, the series doesn't really matter as much as what the fuck do you do now? Because this experiment was failed in year 1. And the Suns have a ton of issues. One, they just don't shoot enough threes. You cannot beat good defensive teams. You can't beat okay defensive teams if you do not shoot threes. It's 2024. It's not the 1940s. You have to shoot threes. You can't. I mean, they had a period in game, forget it's all blurred now, 3 or 4, where they didn't shoot a 3 or they didn't make a 3 for 33 minutes in a 48-minute basketball game. And it's not because they can't shoot them. It's because they won't shoot them. And that's just a problem. And I just don't understand how that can be something that's not addressed at some point in the season. Brad Beal and Book just don't play well together. Their play styles of just whatever it is, they both want to back guys down. They both want to chuck up a 3 randomly when it doesn't make any sense. They both love taking mid-rangers. And Book is a significantly better player in every aspect than Beal. The only thing Beal does better is attack the rim, and that's just because he's a better dunker. That's the only thing he does better than Book. He's not a better defender. He's not a better passer. He's not a better mid-range shooter. He's not a better three-point shooter. And that's just a significant problem for the Suns right now. And when you have a situation where you have these 3 stars who next year are going to be making $150 million between the 3, you're going to have to sign a ton of guys on a vet minimum. That's just a given. You just have to hit on some of them. You can't not hit on any of them. Drew Eubanks, absolutely not a hit. You hampered for him and lost a pick out of it. Great job. KBD, horrible. You traded him midseason. Yuta Watanabe, horrible. Traded him midseason. Chimesi Metu, horrible. You traded him midseason. And then you end up with a guy like Royce O'Neal, who I actually really like, but he was a non-factor this series. You end up with guys like Bol, who was great, but didn't get any playing time this series. Schematically, it makes sense. He wasn't going to be good in the series regardless. What do you do with Bol? You are just in a position where you just have 3 guys who are all good, 2 of them really good, one of them completely sold game 4. We all know who that was. And then after you have those 3 guys and you have all the guys at the bottom, you have that middle tier of guys, which I didn't even mention Eric Gordon. He's irrelevant, even though he actually did have a good series. You have Grayson Allen, who had a phenomenal year, led the league in 3-point shooting. You got him on a deal that is significantly cheaper than where he would have gotten elsewhere. You re-signed him before the playoffs. Definitely the 4th best player on this team. And then you have Nurkic, who was really, really good this year. He was the anchor of the offense. He was passing well. He was rebounding well. He was finishing at the rim okay, I guess. He shows up in this matchup, which I will give it to him. This is the worst possible matchup for him, is with Gobert and Cat. But regardless, he was just an absolute non-factor in this series. He was horrible. Frank Vogel completely lost the locker room this season, especially late. There was a report from Shams that came out directly after the game that do you guys remember when, I think it was like the second to last week of the regular season, when the Clippers beat the Suns by like 50? when they were just up by it was like 50-17 or something. Apparently Vogel just chewed into them at halftime and after the game, and nobody took it well. There was a player that laughed that we now know who that player is, and he is a complete snitch rat. Isaiah Thomas, fuck you.
That's
An
crazy.
absolute snitch. There's nothing else to say about that. I mean, he's Mr. Positive, get up off the bench, clap for everybody, and then you go snitch to Shams for a bag because you haven't made any money in the past 5 years. Regardless, he won't be on an NBA roster anytime soon for many reasons now. But moving on past him, the easiest way to get out of this situation is trade Brad Beal, but he has a no trade clause, and he's probably not going to want to go anywhere else. So that's not an option. They're not going to trade Book. Anybody that thinks they're going to trade Book is completely delusional. You would kill the city, the fan base, the culture, everything that you built. The Suns were fucking irrelevant in the 2010s. The 2020s, they've at least been relevant. They've been in the talks. Everybody's been talking about them. They made the finals in 21. Should have won it. We're up 2-0. Choked that away. But yeah, you can't trade Book. That's not even an option. Maybe KD. That's one way to get out of it. I do not like that option at all. I don't think it makes sense to trade KD. I think he's still a very, very good player. People act like him and Book didn't average top 8 points this season because they both did. I don't think there's any way you trade KD. I think the best option for them, you try and run it back. You have Beal come off the bench. You limit his minutes with Book because we know they cannot play together. You fire Vogel and the whole coaching staff. They had no idea what they were doing. You need to find people who can utilize this big three because they didn't know how to play with Kevin Durant. One possession, he would be isoing on a post-up. The next possession, he'd be sitting in the corner doing absolutely nothing. If you're going to pay these guys $150 million, you have to figure out how to use them correctly. You can trade Nurk if you want. He has the worst playoff record of all time. But like I said, he was good for most of this year outside of this series. So I don't know what you're going to really do there. I just don't know what they're going to do there. But at the end of the day, I think this team does not do much better if you have CP3 and Shamet instead of Beal on this team. I think you have to take the big three plus Grayson Allen and try to just build something that fits, and you just cannot go over on your vet minimum signings again. That's all I have to say.
Well, that's definitely a lot to digest, but let me start this out by saying that Anthony Edwards is a bona fide superstar and might even be a top 10 player in the NBA right now.
He was phenomenal.
He was fantastic in this series, regardless of matchup. He was special. Like, and not like short bus special. He was like special, like, whoa, that's a cool ass rainbow special, you know? But regardless, on your point of the Suns not being a 3-point shooting team, how the Timberwolves played defense, they ran them off the line and then they forced them to take tough twos, which is exactly what the Suns try and do for like most of the time. They're a tough shot making team, which is what mid ranges are because you pull up with someone in your face. Like I watch it every night whenever I watch the Bulls. It's DeMar DeRozan to a T. He'll hit you with the eyebrow fake and he'll just try and hit a contested mid range in your mouth. Like, and he does it because he's good at it. And you have two guys in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant who are very capable of doing that, but sometimes it just doesn't work. In game 4, it was working because they were hooping. They combined for 80 plus, but when Brad Beal has a stinker, Grayson Allen just wasn't really a factor. Okogie, like you mentioned, non-factor. Nurkic, he's
play.
just... Who?
Grayson Allen didn't play.
Oh, he didn't even play?
He got hurt in game 2 and missed.
Oh.
He got hurt in game 1
so
and
like
2,
I said,
and then missed game
non-factor.
4. Yeah.
But Nurkic, not non-factor. Like everybody but your two best players were non-factors. And when you have a guy like Bradley Beal who's supposed to take pressure off of those two guys from years past, that's just not going to work. When you go all in on a super team on 3 guys who are supposed to combine for 80, the 3 of them or even 90 in those clutch games, and only 2 of them are doing the heavy lifting and one of them puts up a stinker, it's just never going to work. So the question is, what do they do? You kind of addressed this a little bit, but that Bradley Beal no trade clause, it is a bitch, and it is going to be so tough to really figure things out around that. As much as I love Book, Kentucky guy, best shooting guard, one of the best guards in the league in general because of his two-way ability and just ability to get himself open and hit tough shots. He's not a point guard. It's semi the same issue that the Bulls are having right now and have been having since Lonzo got hurt. You're having guys who are better as combo 2 guards try and run the 1 and facilitate, i.e. Ayo Dosunmu and Kobe White, who are good players, by the way, and on steals of a contract, both of them. But it's just, you don't want them facilitating. You need a guy who can see the floor, get the guys to their right spots. Ironically, they need a Chris Paul. They need a guy who will get their teammates into positions to succeed rather than a score first guy who will look to pass a little bit later, regardless of the scheme you're in. And they also need a better presence down low, which Nurkic, I mean, he's okay. But he's not gonna be a difference maker in a series like Gobert or Wemby in 2 or 3 years, or what Chet's doing right now for the Thunder. He's not he's not one of those guys on the defensive side. They also need a ball stopper, which ironically, Lonzo would solve that too. They need someone who can
He'd be
stop the
literally the perfect player for the Suns.
He really
right now.
would be
The
And
perfect player.
And honestly, in a dream world for the Suns, and honestly, maybe the Bulls do this because they're fucking stupid. Bradley Beal for Lonzo and I don't know, a couple picks, just because Lonzo's going to be, his value's a little bit lower right now because of the knee thing. And because the Bulls are, like I said, just incredibly stupid and probably want to just change that and make a win now move. And they'll probably find a way to re-sign DeMar, or either sign and trade and then move Levine to the 3 and let Bradley Beal play the 2. And then, oh my God, we'll either go Kobe as our 6th man, or we'll start him while Lonzo isn't here. Bulls need to blow it up. I don't know why I'm turning this into a Bulls thing. But
The worst part about that, though, is it doesn't matter how great the deal is. It matters that Brad Beal wants to go to Chicago or not.
That's what I'm saying.
Matters.
But like for the Suns, it would be such a great idea to go and get a guy like Lonzo, but you can't do that because you are cap strapped with Beal's deal and his no trade clause, when he provided you little to no anything in the entire playoffs aside from just strictly negatives. In theory, it was a great idea, just getting 3 guys who incredibly difficult to guard, could all probably average 35 a game if they were a Luka on their own team with the perfect surrounding cast, which Bradley Beal has done. He averaged 30 and led the league in scoring not too long ago with the Wizards. Booker, we've seen him go out for 50, 60, 70 before. We know he can put it in the rim. And KD, come on, one of the best scorers of all time. Let's not kid ourselves here. Just they have the offense. It just, when it clicks, it's great. But when it doesn't, oh my God, they can't get a stop to save their lives. And they can't initiate offense correctly in the right way that will win you games. So it's unfortunate. The Suns, it's the same question I had for the Lakers. Where do you go? I don't have all the answers. I'm not a GM. I probably shouldn't be a GM because I don't know basketball as well as I know football. But God, the Suns are in such an unfortunate spot. And I hate this for you, that this fell through this early and you are in such a tough spot to where you can't really get out of it as easy as you got yourself into it. You have no first round picks from 2025 to 2030.
Also incorrect. That is a very, very wrong
that
statement
wrong?
that's being floated around. You can't trade back-to-back first round picks. They have every odd year pick. They have a first rounder this year.
Stipend rule. I
Stipend
turn
rule.
that off in 2K all the
Or
time.
sorry,
because
they
of
have
how
all
dumb
they
it
have all
is.
the even round pick or even year picks. They have
Right, but I
they have
mean,
like
how
22 this
valuable
year.
are those really going to be?
They have
Because
like
it's not
20 this year, so I mean that's pretty good.
But I mean, it'd be different if it was the NFL where you can still get like a relatively close blue chip player.
Yeah.
I mean, we're crossing terminology here, but like the top 5 in the NBA draft is vastly different from the top 5 in the NFL draft. And then the back half of the first round is miles better in the NFL than it is in the NBA. So pick 20, I mean, that's not that great. You're basically just taking a swing for the fences, hoping it hits, hoping you're finding like a Malachi, what's his name? Malachi Branham from San Antonio. Is that what I'm thinking of?
Who are you talking
But-
about?
Out of Ohio
So,
State.
The guy
Devin
who went
Vassell?
the guy who went no, the guy who went a couple picks after Dalen
Wow.
Terry a couple years ago. Milos, you're watching, know exactly who I'm talking about. But it's at pick 20, you're probably going to be in there for the next 4 or 5 years throughout this core. I mean, moving KD, that might have to be your only option. But that's the most unfortunate thing you have to do because he's probably your best player, and he would be such a key part in winning a title if you do that with this core. And definitely don't trade Book. I think you mentioned it early on this pod back in October, maybe when we were kicking off the NBA season. You were saying like, yeah, Book's the best son of all time. No question there. I mean, Charles Barkley, he didn't win anything, but Book, he hasn't won anything yet, but he most definitely could. He could be in the running for an MVP or two, but you don't trade the heart of your city, the heart of your franchise. You don't do that. KD, I think him and KD are a solid match, but you just need a point guard instead of Bradley Beal, or you need a point guard instead of Devin Booker running the 1.
Yeah.
That's got to be your biggest need this offseason. But like you said, how do you do that with only vet minimums? It's just such an improbable task. It's like fitting the square peg in the round hole. It's such a difficult thing to do. It may not be impossible. Maybe they hit a home run in the second round of the draft or at 20 at a point guard or something. But the fact that it's so unlikely is so unfortunate for them.
I know we're pressed for time here, but I just want to give a couple more quick points that crossed my mind when you were talking there. One, Grayson Allen not being only playing like 4 quarters in the series was huge. He was maybe the most important player in this series. Him and Eric Gordon, you needed guys that were going to be able to shoot threes from 5 steps beyond the arc.
Out of
Those
double
two
teams,
can.
yep.
The other guys aren't going to be able to do that. As far as the other role players, Royce O'Neal was not good, like I said. The pace was just really, really bad. And that's why a guy like CP3 doesn't work either, because he's not a fast paced player. He's going to play really, really slow. He's a great passer, but he can't defend and he can't play at a fast pace. The Suns need a point guard that can do 3 things: facilitate, play defense, push the pace. You can find a guy that does all 3 and you'll be fine. And then
I know a guy,
two.
Lonzo.
Oh, well, yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
Oh God,
And
I
then
miss him so much.
last thing here, Matt Ishbia. There's been a lot of rumors that he's been in full control and that he's been over James Jones and been making all these decisions to build this team. He's getting a lot of slander. I do not blame him at all, because if I'm in his position, I'm team collect all the stars too, especially what we've seen. You just saw Golden State do it. You've seen how close the Nets got if KD wasn't on the line. I don't blame him at all. But at the same time, you put us here, Matt. Got to get us out now.
Yeah, no, I'll be quick. You guys covered basically every possible thing you could have covered. Good night, 76ers. Your Knicks are going to win this game. But yeah, the Suns just got punked. Anthony Edwards punked them. Jaden McDaniels, like I said in the thing, they might have KD, but we got Jaden McDaniels. He was one of the better players in this matchup. And the Timberwolves just beat him up. Cat was in foul trouble a lot. He was able to, when he played, he was very effective. Gobert was very good. Timberwolves were just a better team. Suns just were not a unit. Vogel's got to go. Like Vogel said, though, he wanted a point guard. He never got it. It's unfortunate for him, but the Suns just got punked.
All right, I'll go quick here because we're pressed for time. Clippers, Mavs, series tied 2-2. This has been a really weird and inconsistent series. The games where Luka and Kyrie guard have been super easy wins for Dallas. If those two don't guard, they're going to be in a tough spot. If they do, they're one of the better teams in the West. Kawhi played games 2 and 3. He missed game 1. He missed game 4. He's going to miss game 5 and maybe more now. So we'll see what happens with that. Harden has been absolutely amazing, and he's maybe Paul George has been good, but you need him to be good. Harden has been keeping the Clippers in this series. Luka shot 1 for 9 from 3 in game 4, and the Mavs only lost that game by 5 points. He has to be better, of course, but I think he will be. And at the end of the day, I just don't see Kawhi Leonard playing. I don't see James Harden being able to be this consistent for the rest of the series. He just hasn't proven that in his career yet, so you can't expect him to. And I'm thinking the Mavs are going to pull the series out.
I'd like to think so as well. Kyrie and Luka have been healthy for the most part. Their stars have been healthy for the Mavs. And like you said, if Harden's going to continue playing this way, maybe they pull it out. Paul George, while Kawhi is out, you have to continue to be a good two-way player, and you've got to be able to continue hitting those tough shots. Like, I think he hit one in the fourth quarter last game where it was like crazy fading from the corner that you would never expect to go in, but he just pure bottoms. It was beautiful. So if he can continue to do stuff like that, then the Clippers may be able to have a chance. But if the Mavs are healthy, their system is better. They have a system that works. It's just I trust the Mavs here. And Luka going 1 for 9 from 3, it's relatively rare. So if he makes a couple of those, they're winning by 1. So I think Luka will figure his shit out.
Yeah, best series so far. I'm excited to continue to talk about it next week. Who knows who wins?
Yep. So quick, but that about does it for this episode of the Engage 8 podcast. As always, hit all the links in our description for Spotify, TikTok,
Oh my
and
God.
social media. And we will see everybody in the next one.